Chapter 1158. Thus, a group of people with profound inner strength began to shout at the foot of Yao Mountain, hoping that the fleeing disciples of the various sects would hear them and head to the north of Yao Mountain. But, not to mention whether they could hear them, even if they did, how could their inner strength compare to the disciples of the three immortal sects? Another group of people anxiously rode their horses to the Dalan Temple's encampment at the north of Yao Mountain. In front of the simple and crude encampment of the Dalan Temple, there was already a dense crowd of people. At the front of the crowd were a few agitated old men. They grabbed the sleeves of the monks on duty and pleaded, "Little master, let my mother see Grandmaster Chong Sheng. My boy is on Yao Mountain. He is the sole heir of our Sure family for 3 generations. The mission of bringing glory to our Sure family rests on his shoulders. If anything happens to him, our Sure family will be finished. That's right, little master. Please take pity on us. That grandson of mine was just curious for a moment, so he went up the mountain to play. He said he would come down in a while, but I'm afraid he went too far. The Righteous Alliance's disciples are only halfway up the mountain. If Grandmaster Longevity appears, my grandson should be saved." The people in front all had blood relatives on the mountain. They were also young and impetuous, so they didn't listen to the cries of the 4 sections. When their relatives at the foot of the mountain saw the massacre on the mountain, they ran to the Dalan Temple to ask Grandmaster Chong Sheng of the Dalan Temple to uphold justice. The monks of the Dalan Temple held wooden sticks in their hands and stood there expressionlessly. They blocked the entrance of the Dalan Temple's encampment and didn't let anyone in. As the clamor grew louder, finally, an old monk walked past a big tree in the distance. When he came closer, everyone recognized him as Grandmaster Chong Sheng. Everyone was delighted and shouted, "Grandmaster Chong Sheng is merciful. Quickly save our disciples. They are young and ignorant and offended the 4 immortal sections. Grandmaster, please spare their lives. When we bring them home, we will definitely punish them severely. Grandmaster, if you save our disciples, our Xianxia school will definitely erect a statue of you in our school. We will burn incense and kowtow to you every day. That's right. Master Chong Sheng is a Buddha in all homes. This kind of small matter, isn't it a piece of cake?" Reverend Chong Sheng forced a smile and walked forward. He put his palms together and said, "Benefactors, please calm down. Our Dalan Temple has always been merciful. If we can save people, we will save them. However, Yao Mountain has 4 sides and my Dalan Temple only occupies the northern side. The other 3 sides are occupied by the incense cult between the clouds and the water and the Righteous Alliance. I'm afraid my Dalan Temple cannot interfere with the affairs of the other sections. The treasure on Mount Yao has been quiet for many days now, and there are no signs of it being unearthed. Furthermore, the disciples of the various sects have been rashly heading up the mountain in search of treasure. It's already a mess, and if there's any movement, wouldn't it lead to a huge storm? Therefore, when Bai Zhangmen of Between the Clouds and the Water proposed to clean up the disciples of Yao Mountain, my Dalan Temple and the other 2 sects agreed. However, Between the Clouds and the Water's methods were too ruthless. My Dalan Temple's Master Chong Sheng couldn't bear to see bloodshed. As early as 4 hours before Between the Clouds and the Water's shout, he had already sent many disciples and lay disciples up the mountain to persuade the disciples of the various sects to return to the northern side of Yao Mountain. However, as you all have seen, no matter how the disciples of my Dalan Temple tried to persuade them, not a single person came down. Now, take a look again. My Dalan Temple has not killed a single person. Instead, it has accommodated the disciples of the other 3 sides. Since Between the Clouds and the Water, the Righteous Alliance and the incense cult began to kill people, the disciples of the various sects on the northern side of Yao Mountain, has not a single person come down? Everyone, my Dalan Temple is one of the 4 sects of the path of immortality, but it is only one of them. My Dalan Temple is merciful and has left a path of survival for the disciples of the various sections. However, this path of survival must be taken by someone. Just now, Grandmaster Longevity made it clear that my Dalan Temple will protect the disciples of the other 3 sects before they find out. If the other sects discover that the surviving disciples have gathered at the northern side of the Dalan Temple, I'm afraid, even my Dalan Temple won't be able to bear the consequences. While Grandmaster Longevity Fortune was explaining, the crowd looked up. Sure enough, more and more people were gathering at the northern side of Yao Mountain. However, not a single person came down. The monks of the Dalan temple held weapons in their hands and only whispered words of persuasion. They didn't move. Those people, whether they were already at the northern side or had fled from the other two sides, turned a deaf ear to their words. There were even some disciples of the various sects who were gesticulating. The crowd watched from afar and didn't know what to say. At this time, someone from the back of the crowd shouted, "The Dalan temple really doesn't live up to its reputation. I thought Grandmaster Longevity Fortune was merciful and would take it upon himself to save the disciples of the various sections. But now it seems that he is also under pressure from the other sections. Since that's the case, why do we still need to beg him? Why don't we band together? I don't believe that only the 4 immortal Dao sects have the right to speak in the entire pugilistic world. Are all my other sects just puppets? That's right, that's right. We should also form an alliance and advance and retreat together. We won't have to give face to the 4 immortal Dao sects." The crowd was noisy again. Some were anxious to seek help while others had ulterior motives. In the end, apart from a dozen or so people who had relatives on Yao Mountain who stayed in front of the Dalan temple's camp, most of the others left in a hurry. Watching the crowd leave in a hurry, Grandmaster Longevity Fortune sighed for no reason. He put his palms together and murmured, "Amit Ba, I've sinned, I've sinned." Then he turned around and walked to a tree in the distance. He turned around a few old pine trees. Under the shade of the trees, Grandmaster Longevity, Great Master Chong Gung, and a few old monks sat cross-legged. Some of them held prayer beads in their hands, while others held wooden fish in their hands. All of them had a profound look on their faces as they recited sutras with their eyes closed. Under another cypress tree not far from them, the 3 grandmasters Yuan Dao, Yuan Ming and Yuan Wu were using the abundant qi of heaven and earth in Yao Mountain to draw qi into their bodies. Hearing that Grandmaster Longevity Fortune had returned, Grandmaster Longevity Fortune opened his eyes. He looked around and said in a low voice, "How is it? Junior brother Chongqing, have they dispersed?" Amit Ba. Reporting to Abbot, they have dispersed, but it seems there's still some trouble. Grandmaster Longevity Fortune recounted what had happened just now. In the end he said, "There seems to be some people with bad intentions in this group. They want to use this as an opportunity to incite some heroes of the pugilistic world to go against the 4 immortal Dao sects. But how should we deal with them? Cause is cause, effect is effect. You have to reap what you sow. Junior brother Chongqing, didn't you see? All of Mount Yao is sowing the seeds of karma. Now that the seeds have been sown, no matter how much we worry, no matter how much we meddle, what can we do to stop the karma? Perhaps we'll be able to reap the fruits soon." "Yes. Many thanks for the abbot's teachings," Grandmaster Longevity Fortune said in a low voice. "Senior brother Chongqing, don't feel bad. Between the clouds and the water is certainly ruthless, but there was some leeway before. Even the Dalan temple has shouted at the foot of the mountain countless times. If the people on the mountain knew when to advance or retreat, they would have come down long ago. But look, the knife is already on their necks. They're still thinking about their immortal fate. They've been forced to come to the Dalan temple. They're still unrepentant, ignoring the door of convenience in front of them. How can the Dalan temple change this kind of fate? There are still thousands of lives. This old monk can't bear it." Grandmaster Longevity Fortune said with a shake of his head. "They don't cherish their own lives. Why should we cherish them for them?" Great Master Chong Gung disagreed. "Go. Inform the disciples on the mountain to rush down from the top of the mountain. If there's anyone who doesn't obey, seal their acupoints and kick them down Mount Yao. If there's anyone who relies on their superior lightness skills to escape from the gaps between the Dalan temple's disciples and stays on Mount Yao, when the Dalan temple's disciples come up again to search for treasures, kill them without mercy." Without waiting for Grandmaster Longevity Fortune to speak, he continued, "Junior brother Chongqing, this is the Dalan temple's origin returning tribulation. Even the 3 martial uncles have come to face the tribulation. If you and I don't take the initiative, I'm afraid the consequences will be unimaginable. Abbot, we're lucky." Grandmaster Longevity Fortune said no more. Not long after, a disciple passed the Grandmaster Longevity Fortune's words to Mount Yao. At this time in the north of Mount Yao, besides the monks of the Dalan temple, there were only the lay disciples of the Dalan temple. The monks were easy to deal with as they studied Buddhist scriptures and had good tempers. They were easy to negotiate with the disciples of the various sections. The lay disciples were different. There were many conflicts with the disciples of the various sections. However, because the Grand Master Longevity Fortune didn't give the order, they didn't dare to act rashly and could only endure. This tolerance made the disciples of the various sects even more arrogant. Not only did they ignore the rules of the Dalan Temple, they even cursed and scolded them indirectly. After hearing the abbot's order, the Dalan Temple disciples looked at each other and didn't say a word. They turned around and went straight to the top of the mountain. Then they used their lightness skills and went down the mountain. This time when they met the disciples of the various sects, they didn't show any mercy. Without saying a word, they sealed their acupoints and kicked them down the mountain. Every time they kicked, they didn't kick far. The disciples only fell and bled, but they weren't afraid of losing their lives. Just as the Grand Master Longevity Fortune predicted, there were indeed some clever people. While the Dalan Temple monks were arresting others, they escaped through the gaps. The Dalan Temple monks didn't chase after them. Those people thought they had succeeded and immediately ran away, looking for places they hadn't been to before. It seemed that the celestial instruments were like copper coins that had fallen on the ground. As long as you lowered your head, you could see them. Another 2 hours passed and the screams on Mount Yao gradually died down. The disciples of the three sects began to clean up the scattered corpses on Mount Yao one by one. Although all the corpses were deathly pale and their bodies were completely drained of blood, who would pay attention to that? Even if they did, they wouldn't make a fuss about it. After all, Jianghu was a bloody place. On the north side of Mount Yao, the Dalan Temple monks had driven nearly 2,000 disciples from the various sects down the mountain. Every one of them had a bloody nose and a swollen face. When the Dalan Temple monks unsealed their acupoints, they were still cursing and spouting nonsense. Great Master Chonggung saw this and snorted. He waved his hand and said, "Guardian disciples, quickly go up Mount Yao and clean up the north side of the mountain. Don't leave a single one behind. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark and tip." Chapter 1159. Yes, your disciple obeys. Dozens of monks of various appearances stepped out from behind Great Master Chonggung, weapons in hand. Using their lightness skills, they made their way up the mountain. It was obvious that the martial arts of these disciples of the Dharma protectors were much better than the monks who had cleaned up the disciples of the various sects. After the disciples of the Dharma protectors left, Great Master Chonggung waved his hand again and said, "All disciples, listen to my orders. Form a straight line from the bottom of the mountain and search every corner carefully. Do not miss out on anything out of the ordinary." Yes, your disciple obeys. The remaining disciples of the Dalan Temple distanced themselves from each other and made their way up Yao Mountain step by step. From the looks of it, they were no different from the disciples of the various sections. They all had their heads lowered as they searched for copper coins. Help! The monks of the Dalan Temple are killing people. Not long after, a series of screams rang out from the top of Yao Mountain. Although the screams came a little late, they still came. At the foot of Yao Mountain there was a huge crowd of people. It was like a market. Everyone's faces were filled with joy and vigilance. That, combined with the ambition in their eyes, formed a complicated expression. Everyone had heard the screams from the top of the mountain. There were many familiar voices among them, but most of them gritted their teeth and clenched their fists. They looked at the tents and wooden huts at the foot of the mountain with hatred in their eyes. On top of Yao Mountain, the disciples of the four immortal Tao sects searched the mountain in full swing. At the foot of the mountain there were many more sects than the four immortal Tao sects. The sky was dark. At the foot of Yao Mountain, the four immortal Tao sects had already cleaned up the corpses that had been killed on the mountain. The corpses were thrown carelessly on the ground. Those that belonged to family members or sects were taken away by people crying to the heavens. Those that had not been claimed were left lying there. However, these corpses were no longer even passers-by. Who would care? On Mount Yao, the disciples were holding torches in their hands. The torches looked like specks of starlight. Not far from the foot of the mountain, torches that looked like a river of stars appeared. At the front was a hale and hearty old man, holding a sheathed padao in his hand. Beside him there were several other people who also looked dignified. Looking behind him there were thousands of people, all dressed in martial attire, holding torches in one hand and weapons in the other. Their anger soared to the sky as they looked at Yao Shan and followed behind the old man. The procession hadn't even reached the foot of Yao Mountain yet. so it had already attracted the attention of the crowd. Many people whispered, "What is old Master Shang doing?" He was a renowned figure in the Jianghu. How many years had it been since he last appeared? "Since you're here today, do you have something important to tell me?" That's right. Old Master Shang is a man of virtue and prestige. In the past, many things in the Jianghu were decided by him. It must be because he saw how rampant the four immortal Dao sects were, that he represented the entire martial Dao and wanted to seek justice from the immortal Dao. After the martial arts convention of the incense cult, the people in the Jianghu had a general understanding of the immortal Dao and martial Dao. It was easy for them to talk about it now. Just as the crowd expected, Old Master Shang led the crowd to the campsite between the clouds and the water. The disciples of Between the Clouds and the Water were shocked when they saw the flood of people. Before they could get close, someone had already turned back to report. The person guarding the entrance took a few steps forward and stopped the crowd, saying, "In front of you is our campsite between the clouds and the water. Please stay." When Old Man Shang heard this, he couldn't help but laugh. This is the territory of Yaoshan, the heart of the Central Plains. This old man is not talented, but after roaming the Jianghu for so many years, I've never heard of Yaoshan becoming the private territory of some sect or sect. "Who are you? How dare you say that?" The disciple was stunned and sneered. "That brat you has eyes but doesn't recognize Mount Tai. This is the old Master Shang of a famous martial arts family in the Central Plains. He's more than 70 years old this year and is old enough to be your grandfather. How can you speak so rudely?" The disciple frowned and thought for a while. He cupped his hands and said, "Old Master Shang, it's late now. May I know why you're here?" "Nothing. I just have something to discuss with your sects by Zhangmen." The disciple smiled and said, "Old Master Shang, it's late now. Please go back. Tomorrow I'll report to my sects by Zhangmen and invite you over for a chat. What do you think?" This disciple of Between the Clouds and the Water was so polite that Old Master Shang couldn't get angry. He coughed and said, "I have something important to discuss with Bai Zhangmen. Little brother, you'd better go back and report it." "That's right. Hurry up and report it. Otherwise, we'll rush into your camp Between the Clouds and the Water. I'm afraid it'll be bad for you Between the Clouds and the Water." Someone boldly shouted from behind. "Who dares to rush into my camp Between the Clouds and the Water?" A loud shout came from not far away. It was Bai Yanqiu's voice. Everyone looked up. Sure enough, the beautiful Bai Yanqiu was walking slowly in the light. Behind her were three old men in Taoist robes. "I'm Shang Xuanzi. Is that Bai Zhangmen Between the Clouds and the Water?" Old Master Shang cupped his hands and asked. "I am Bai Yanqiu. May I know why Old Master Shang is looking for me?" Bai Yanqiu smiled. Seeing Bai Yanqiu in person, Old Master Shang was a little hesitant. But looking at the people behind him, he seemed to have gathered his courage and said, "I've been elected as a representative by the 104 sects in Jianghu. I'd like to ask for an explanation from the four immortal sects led by Between the Clouds and the Water." "Old Master Shang, what explanation do you want from us?" Bai Yanqiu asked as if she already knew the answer. "The immortal sects are admired by all in Jianghu. During the Wulin assembly of the incense sect, we martial sects already know the gap between us and the four immortal sects. Therefore we've always followed the four immortal sects' lead. However, this magic treasure of Mount Yao is a gift from the heavens. Only the virtuous can possess it. And this virtuous person doesn't necessarily have to be a member of the immortal sects. We martial sects should also have this right. But now not only have the four immortal sects surrounded Mount Yao like an iron bucket, none of the other sects in Jianghu are allowed to approach. Moreover, just now the four immortal sects were ruthless and killed countless martial sects on Mount Yao. This kind of behavior, how can we martial sects accept it?" "Haha, I understand." Bai Yanqiu smiled. "But what do you think, Old Master Shang?" Old Master Shang waved his hand. "Bai Zhangmen, you're wrong. This isn't my idea alone. It's the joint idea of all 104 sections. It's all the same. Let's hear it, Old Master Shang." "It's nothing much. It's just that we martial sects want to be treated the same as the four immortal sects. First, we'd like to ask the four immortal sects to give us some space on Mount Yao. Second, we'd like to send people up the mountain with the immortal sects. Search for the magic treasure together?" Bai Yanqiu smiled faintly. "But what if we find the magic treasure? What should we do? Naturally, it'll belong to whoever finds it. Old Master Shang laughed. Does Bai Zhangmen have other ideas? Bai Yanqiu shrugged. I can't think of anything at the moment. It's just that the Jianghu has always had a rule of killing and robbing. If you pick up a magic treasure but don't have the fortune to use it and are killed, who will it belong to? Naturally, it'll belong to whoever finds it. Old Master Shang didn't say anything. Instead, a man beside him spoke up. I don't know which sect's leader this is, but if it's as you say, then wouldn't the entire Mount Yao be in a state of carnage again? Countless deaths and injuries? Bai Yanqiu smiled. That's better than only the 4 immortal sects controlling Mount Yao and not letting us go up the mountain to search for the treasure. The man gritted his teeth and looked at the people behind him. He mustered up his courage and said. Bai Yanqiu was about to speak when he heard someone behind him say angrily, "What kind of dirty people are these? With your cultivation you want to covet the Mount Yao immortal abode?" Bai Yanqiu was shocked. Before he could look back he saw a person fly up from behind him and stop 3 feet in the air in front of Bai Yanqiu. It was Taoist Master Hao Yun. Taoist Master Hao Yun had a fiery temper and was never afraid of trouble. At this time when he heard the condemnation of people who were like ants in his eyes, he was already impatient. Without waiting for Bai Yanqiu to finish speaking, he took out a small flute-like magic weapon from his arms and floated into the air. He scolded, "If you can borrow this attack of mine, I'll make the decision to let you go up the mountain." As he spoke he didn't wait for the others to speak. He made a hand seal and injected his true qi into the magic weapon. Suddenly, the magic weapon emitted a fiery red brilliance. Taoist Master Hao Yun was stunned. His hand paused for a moment but then he waved his hand. The magic weapon drew a semicircle in front of Taoist Master Hao Yun, and a dense number of fireflies flew out. As if they had intelligence they floated towards Old Shang and the others. How? Bai Yanqiu saw Taoist Master Hao Yun floating in the air and knew it was bad. Just as he shouted a word, Taoist Master Hao Yun had already made his move. Seeing the countless sparks flying out, Bai Yanqiu's face showed surprise and a bitter smile. Seeing this, Old Man Shang's snow-white eyebrows furrowed. He didn't understand what these sparks were. When one of the sparks flew in front of him he stretched out the sheath machete in his hand wanting to block it. Who would have thought that the sparks didn't seem to be very powerful in the air? After being blocked by the scabbard, a crisp paw sound rang out and it exploded in the air. Once again it formed a firework-like shape that enveloped Old Shang. This time it was different from before. It was even faster. Before Old Shang could react, the tiny sparks had already hit his body. The sparks were similar to the fire talismans that Zhang Xiaohua was used to using. When they landed on Old Shang's body, they immediately ignited his clothes, skin, hair and so on. Even the scabbard was ignited by a few sparks. Not only that, the sparks seemed to be poisonous. When they landed on his skin, it was incomparably painful. Even Old Shang couldn't withstand it. With a scream, Old Shang threw away the scabbard and hurriedly wiped his face with his hand, wanting to extinguish the sparks. Please cast a monthly vote, a recommendation vote, a collection, a tip. Chapter 1160. However, how could these sparks be extinguished by hand? Just as Old Master Shang's hand touched the sparks, his hand was immediately ignited. A sharp pain came from his hand again. Old Master Shang involuntarily rubbed his hand against his body. As a result, his body was also on fire. "Ah, save me, save me!" Old Master Shang's entire body was in sharp pain. He unconsciously jumped up on the spot, his hands grabbing everywhere, trying to find someone to save him. However, at this moment, how could there be people around him who were unharmed? It wasn't just around him. Within a radius of 10 feet around Old Master Shang, there were about 100 people. At this moment, they were all howling and frantically trying to extinguish the fire on their bodies. The more clever ones had already laid down on the ground and rolled violently, hoping to extinguish the fire with their wings. Seeing this scene, Taoist Master Hao Yun, who was in mid-air, laughed loudly. He turned around and said, "Junior brother, did you see this? My raging flame flute actually has such power. Truly, I'm looking forward to it." Taoist Master Hao Yu and Taoist Master Hao Feng also didn't hide their whereabouts. They leaped up and flew to Taoist Master Hao Yun's side. They cupped their hands and smiled. Congratulations, senior brother, for your great improvement in magic power. Hehe, it's nothing, it's nothing. Taoist Master Hao Yun waved his hand and said, how is it that my magic power has improved? It's just that the heaven and earth vital chi here is abundant. Our magic tools can display their power. Oh? Grand Wind stared blankly for a moment, then immediately understood. He also laughed out loud. That's right. I was just wondering. According to the secret manual in our sect, our magic tools are incomparably powerful, like the bright moon. But when we use them, they're like fireflies. So it's because of the chi of heaven and earth. Stupid. As he spoke, he also took out a small awl and waved it in front of him. With a crackling sound, a net flashing with lightning formed in front of the awl. Go. Taoist Master Hao Feng pointed with his hand. The net flew directly towards where Taoist Master Hao Feng pointed. There was a group of martial artists who had followed Old Master Shang and the rest here. When they saw Old Master Shang and the rest on fire, they hesitated, not knowing whether to run away or go forward to help. The flashing lightning net grew bigger and bigger in the abundant origin energy of heaven and earth. The lightning arcs also became thicker and there were faint sounds of wind and thunder. By the time it reached the group of people, it had already grown to about 50 feet and was about to envelop them. When everyone saw this, they were already terrified. Some took out their weapons in an attempt to defend themselves, while others turned around in an attempt to escape. However, no matter how much they resisted, the net enveloped them all. Immediately after, a crackling sound similar to beans being fried sounded. About 40 to 50 people died on the spot before they could even let out any screams. Aha, as expected. My lightning awl is actually so powerful. Taoist Vast Wind stood in the air and laughed wildly. He turned his head and said, Senior brother, don't you want to try your lightning hammer? That's exactly what I was thinking. The nearby Taoist Master Hao Yu also seemed to be unable to restrain his curiosity. He reached into his bosom wanting to take out his magic tool. At this moment, a buzzing sound came from the top of Yao Mountain. Taoist Master Hao Yu did not have time to take out his lightning hammer, nor did he have time to chase after the group of people who had already scattered. He immediately turned around and looked at Yao Mountain. When he saw the beautiful scene above Yao Mountain, he could not help but be dumbfounded. Above Yao Mountain, about 100 feet above the originally pitch-black sky, there was an extremely small dot of light that was faintly emitting a trace of light, gradually appearing in the sky. The buzzing sound was coming from that dot of light. It was getting louder and louder, more and more deafening. Immortal Mansion? Taoist Master Hao Yu was stunned for a moment, then became ecstatic. His heart felt as if it was about to fly out. Just as he was about to fly forward, a palm pressed down on his shoulder. Taoist Master Hao Yu also suppressed his excitement and said, Junior. Brother, don't be anxious. It's still early. Bai Yanqiu, who was standing behind the three Taoist masters, was also extremely excited. Seeing that the immortal mansion that she had been planning for so long was about to appear, her palms also slowly became sweaty. Not only were the three Taoist masters between the clouds and the water attracted by the strange scene in the sky, even the disciples of the various sects who were previously shocked by Taoist Master Hao Yu and Taoist Master Hao Yu's thunderous methods gradually stopped in their tracks. Their mouths were wide open as they looked at the sky above Yao Mountain. The only ones who were not surprised were Old Man Shang and the others who were killed by the raging flame flute and the lightning all dead. The same scene also appeared in various other places of Yao Mountain. In the camp of the School of Fragrance, Nun Jingyi had already led Peacock and the others to the front of the wooden house. Xu Qing and Xu Jia, the two grand elders, soared into the air, unable to hide the excitement on their faces as they quietly watched. In the camp of the Dalan Temple, Grandmaster Chong Gong, Great Master Chong Gong and Grandmaster Chong Xing clasped their hands together and stood there respectfully. The dot of light in the night sky was a little brighter. Although the fiery red light was still weak, it faintly reflected Grandmaster Chong Gong's indescribable expression. On the contrary, Grandmaster Yuan Dao and the others were still sitting under the tree, as if they had nothing to do with the immortal mansion. In the westernmost camp of the Righteous Alliance, although they had the largest number of people, there was no one from the immortal mansion. Alliance Master Zhang San also stood in the open space, his eyes first looking at the light, then turned to the south of Yao Mountain. His face was slightly red, no one knew what he was thinking. Not long after, the dot of light in the sky of Yao Mountain grew larger, slowly becoming the size of a fist, then the size of a boulder. The blood-red light was like countless sharp swords that split the night sky. The red light was like a burning flame, boiling and rotating in circles, illuminating the night sky. Heaven and Earth's yuan qi, the previously scarce yuan qi of heaven and earth, rushed in all directions along with the light. It was even stronger than the previous hurricane, blowing the trees of Yao Mountain askew, almost causing sand and stones to fly everywhere. The buzzing sound that accompanied the appearance of the blood-red light never stopped. Not only did it get louder and louder, but it also gradually became rhythmic. If one listened carefully, wouldn't it be the sound of war drums? But at this time, the tens of thousands of people at the foot of the mountain were all holding their breaths, watching with rapt attention. Who could tell in detail? A passage to the immortal realm. It was unknown who was the first to come to a realization. His figure flashed, and he was about to rush forward, wanting to find the best position before the so-called passage appeared. It didn't matter that this person moved, but the people around him also came to a realization. None of them were fools, and their daily cultivation of qigong was no worse than the people around them. In an instant, these people all rushed forward. It didn't matter that this group of people moved, but the people around them all came to a realization. Hurry, hurry, who knows how big that passage is? Who knows how long it will appear? As long as we get to the front, we'll definitely have a chance. This was what almost everyone was thinking. But at the foot of Yao Mountain, almost all of the famous people of Jianghu had come. Tens of thousands was a small number, and who knew how many people secretly hid at the back because they didn't have the qualifications to go forward. Now that the passage to the immortal realm was about to open, who could still be reserved? Like a swarm of bees, they squeezed toward Yao Mountain. Don't block my way. Get out of the way. Almost all of them said the same thing. It wasn't clear who made the first move, and it wasn't clear whether this person's saber was aimed at the person in front of him, or the sword was aimed at the person beside him. In just a moment, that sword or saber became the fuse that ignited the frenzied slaughter. And this slaughter seemed to be able to spread. From a certain point, it rapidly spread in all directions. As the slaughter spread, the weng-weng sound from the ball of light also became hurried, up and down with a cadence. First, it vibrated with the sound of slaughter, and after an unknown amount of time, the sound of slaughter actually matched the weng-weng sound. One after another, miserable screams rose and fell, becoming the melody of the weng-weng sound. One person was killed, and before the blood-dripping sword could be pulled out of the person's body, the person holding the sword had his head smashed flat by a strange weapon. Both of them lay on the ground, dead as can be. However, under the illumination of the blood-red brilliance, the blood that flowed from the bodies of the two people, like the disciples of the various sects who were killed on Yao Mountain, seeped into the ground and disappeared without a trace. This kind of abnormality, even in the daytime, may not be noticed, let alone in the blood-red night. On Yao Mountain, the blood-red brilliance was dazzling, like the setting sun in the west. On Yao Mountain, the heart-wrenching sound was like the sound of war drums in the battlefield. And below Yao Mountain, tens of thousands of people were killing each other, miserable screams and endless blood. This was the main melody of sorrow. Greed, savagery, cunning, and other kinds of human nature that were never revealed before, were revealed one by one at this moment, completely annihilating everyone's reason. Almost everyone forgot why they were waving their sabers and only mechanically, involuntarily thrusting the weapons in their hands, as if this was the only reason for their existence in this world. A ball of blood-red light, a blood-red mountain, a burst of blood-red sound, a blood-red night. And also a blood-red human nature. In front of the campsite between the clouds and the water, Hao Yun and the other two perfected masters stood in the air and said, "What a tragedy." Hao Yun and the other two perfected masters killed old Shang and the others, and resisted the temptation of the ball of light in front of them, and suppressed their impulse to rush over. Just as they were whispering to each other, they saw countless martial artists behind them, rushing up Yao Mountain. They did not dare to be careless and called out to Bai Yanqiu, rose into the air, and threw the jade talismans that they had prepared long ago on the ground one by one. If it were any other day, they would not be willing to waste them like this, but at this moment, with such abundant qi of heaven and earth, they were not stingy with these little jade talismans. As the four of them flew over, on the side of the campsite between the clouds and the water, a faint layer of yellow light gradually rose up, blocking the group of people outside the light, and no matter if they used weapons or lightness skills, they could not get past it. And the people behind were still rushing up, and the people in front had nowhere to go. They could only turn around and point their weapons at the people coming. Only then could they save their own lives. Amit Ba Buddha. A faint Buddhist chant sounded in the air, attracting the attention of Hao Yun and the others. Please cast a monthly vote, please cast a recommendation vote, please collect, please tip, thank you. Chapter 1161. The commotion at Yao Mountain was earth-shattering. Moreover, it was in the hinterland of the Central Plains, so it had long attracted the attention of countless people. However, the people of the pugilistic world had long since noticed and surrounded the entire Yao Mountain. Even if the other factions wanted to, they were unable to do so. Far away at Misty Peak in Pingyang City, Zhang Xiaohu, who had received his disciple's report, stood at the peak and watched from afar. He was slightly excited when he saw such a beautiful scene. Great Sect Master. Could this really be the passage to the celestial realm? Yao Mountain is very close to Misty Mountain Villa. Great Sect Master, should we? Hu Yuni narrowed his eyes. His clenched fists trembled slightly as he tried to suppress his excitement. Hee, Elder Hu, should we go to Yao Mountain to join in the fun? Let's see if there's any celestial fate there. Zhang Xiaohu took a deep breath. His eyes were still fixed on the ball of light at Yao Mountain. Yes, not just me but the others. I'm afraid they all have the same idea. Hu Yuni looked around and smiled. All of you have the same idea? Zhang Xiaohu forced his gaze away from the ball of light. He turned around and looked at the others. Although there was no red light on their faces, their eyes were shining with a faint red color. Great Sect Master. I also have the same idea. When One Hai was Zhang Xiaohu's master, so he was the first to answer. Elderly, you want it too? Hee, Great Sect Master, I'd be lying if I said I didn't. Look at the situation. If there really is a staircase in the air, how can I not be tempted? Li Jian chuckled. If a copper coin fell in front of you, Elder Li, would you bend down to pick it up? Zhang Xiaohu suddenly asked. Copper coins? Li Jian, who was looking into the distance, was stunned. He looked away and smiled. Why would I pick up that thing? Then, what about a tael of silver? Well, if there's no one around, maybe I'll pick it up. If there's someone around, I can't afford to lose face. Li Jian laughed. Then, what if it's a gold ingot? Let's think about it. Li Jian somewhat understood what Zhang Xiaohu meant. Everyone, you've all heard Elder Li's answer just now. To Elder Li, a copper coin is something that he would never pick up, regardless of whether there's anyone around. As for a tael of silver, if there's someone around, he's afraid of losing face and won't pick it up. If it's a gold ingot, I have to think about it. I don't know if Elder Li would pick it up. Pick it up? Why not? That's all wine money. Lu Qingyang shouted. Ah! Everyone laughed. After everyone finished laughing, Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand and laughed again. However, if these things were placed 6 years ago, my attitude would be completely different from Elder Li's. For a copper coin, I would think about whether or not there's anyone around. For a tael of silver, please. Do you know that when I was a bodyguard at the Lotus Flower Escort Agency, I only had a monthly salary of 6 maces. 1 tael of silver, how could I not give up my face and pick it up? As for a gold ingot, I don't need to think about it like Elder Li. If it's placed in front of me and someone tries to steal it from me, I'll pull out a knife. Ha ha ha. Everyone laughed. Everyone thinks that with the same few things, why would he make a different choice if he sees someone different? Moreover, if there's a gold ingot and Elder Li is on the side thinking about it, there's a few people like me who want to steal it. Tell me, who would be safe and sound in the end? Without waiting for everyone to speak, Zhang Xiaohu waved his hand and said, there's no need to think too much about it. It would definitely be Elder Li. Even if my martial arts are high, I can't stand against someone with even higher martial arts than me. Only those who don't plan to steal from the beginning have the chance to live in the end. Then does everyone know why Elder Li didn't steal it? Zhang Xiaohu asked again. Second brother doesn't lack money. If he wants to drink wine, someone will give it to him. Lu Qingyang shouted. Ah, Elder Lu is right. It's because Elder Li doesn't lack money and knows the consequences of taking the gold ingot that he stopped to consider whether he should take it or not. Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Maybe elderly saw that I was also coming to pick it up and didn't dare to take it. Exactly. Big gang leader is a person of the immortal Tao. This old man is no match for him. It's better to avoid him. Li Jian said with a smile. What if the gold ingot was exchanged for the immortal mansion? Zhang Xiaohu suddenly said. This. Li Jian was silent. Obviously he wanted to steal it. But in Zhang Xiaohua's eyes, this immortal mansion? Elderly, what do you think? If he were to steal it with you, what do you think your chances are? Zhang Xiaohu said with a smile. Elder Immortal's ability is not something I can guess. However, I don't even have a 5% chance. Li Jian was very honest. This is very obvious. Everyone, elderly, has to consider the consequences of a gold ingot and won't rashly pick it up. But for an immortal mansion, elderly won't consider it at all. That's because the immortal mansion has exceeded elderly's expectations, or it can satisfy elderly's desire to set foot on the immortal Tao, so he doesn't care about the consequences. And Xiaohua is an expert of the immortal Tao. He treats the immortal mansion the same way elderly treats the gold ingot. He considers a lot. He knows that there are many experts like him or even experts stronger than him who want to steal it. He doesn't dare to act rashly. An elderly doesn't know this. If he wants to steal it, the consequences will be the same as me stealing the gold ingot. But didn't Elder Immortal say that he wants this immortal mansion? Huyuni asked curiously. That's because he didn't consider the previous matter. Now, he has considered it clearly and has already gone to the south to start his sect. Elder Immortal isn't going. If we go, wouldn't we be courting death? Du Feng and Ding Chao cried out in alarm. Isn't that so? Everyone should guard the villa tightly. Our Misty School has its own immortal Tao inheritance. As long as there's a chance, everyone will be able to set foot on the immortal Tao. There's no need to be confused by the scene in front of you. Zhang Xiaohu said. Moreover, our Misty School's calamity hasn't passed yet. Jingyi of Chuanxiang cult just sent a disciple to ask our Misty School's deputy gang leader Ming or deputy gang leader Ying to go to Yaoshan. They must have discovered the abnormality of our Misty School and sent someone to test us. We still have the energy to deal with this crisis. Yes, big gang leader, we will remember. Everyone bowed and saluted. That's right. Gang leader. An unknown voice rang out. If Elder Immortal comes across copper coins, silver ingots and gold ingots, would he do the same as elderly? Would he completely ignore them? This. Zhang Xiaohu was really at a loss for words. He thought for a moment and laughed. This. When Xiaohua comes back, I'll ask him on your behalf. In the dark, Zhang Xiaohu pursed his lips and thought to himself, this? Do you still need to ask? Let alone gold ingots and silver ingots, he wouldn't even let go of a single copper coin. Far to the north of Yaoshan, Zhang Xiaohua, who had concealed himself in midair, was flying towards Pingyang City. He did not know that his second brother had already preached him to the Misty School's higher-ups as a role model. His attention was caught by the strange phenomenon in his divine perception. What's going on? Could it be that there's a fundamental change in the chi of heaven and earth? Why are there more and more of them? Moreover, this wind seems to be slightly warmer. It's far from the weather of autumn. No, this wind is obviously caused by the chi of heaven and earth. As the wind blows, the chi of heaven and earth is flowing in all directions. Could it be that there's something happening at Yaoshan again? Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He looked as far as he could, but he was still very far away from Yaoshan. Even though the ball of light above Yaoshan was 10 feet in size, Zhang Xiaohua still could not see it. Perhaps should I hurry up a little bit? If there's something happening at Yaoshan, won't I miss it if I'm late? Zhang Xiaohua took a deep breath. His nose and mouth were filled with the freshness of the chi of heaven and earth. He formed a spell and flew towards Yaoshan at lightning speed. On the south side of Yaoshan, Hao Yunzhenren raised his head and narrowed his eyes. From the west side of Yaoshan, 3 old monks wearing kasayas were flying towards them slowly. They were still far away, but the sound of chanting could be heard. It was as if they were right beside him. Hao Yunzhenren glanced at Hao Yu and Hao Feng. Just as he was about to step forward, he heard a sharp voice. Fellow Taoist, you look very unfamiliar. How should I address you? Hao Yunzhenren sucked in a breath of cold air and turned his head again. He saw two old women with white hair, dressed in palace attire, flying towards them from the east side of Yaoshan. Dalan Temple's Master Yuan Dao, Master Yuan Ming and Master Yunwu. Priestess Xu Qing and Priestess Xu Jia. Between the clouds and the water Hao Yun Zhenren, Hao Yu and Hao Feng. They had all gathered at Yaoshan. Apart from the Misty School, the remaining elders of the other three sects had all appeared at Yaoshan. When Taoist Hao Yu and Taoist Hao Feng saw this, they formed hand seals and also came to Taoist Hao Yun's side. The three of them looked at each other, and from each other's eyes that reflected a bloody light, they understood each other's intentions. Then the three of them stood back to back in the air, coldly looking at the people coming from the two directions. Unexpectedly, Master Yuan Dao and the others didn't immediately speak when they arrived in front of Hao Yu. Instead they flew past them and directly arrived in front of Xu Qing and Xu Jia. Master Yunwu put his palms together and said with an indescribable tone, "It's actually two nuns. How rare. I didn't think that after 30 years, I would still have the opportunity to meet you." Xu Jia also didn't hesitate. She swung the small whip in her hand, making a pa sound, and replied, "Of course. My priestess has always been clear about gratitude and grudges. We're not like some people who always talk about being merciful and saving the common people. Naturally, we have to live longer than others." "Oh, that's right, Master Yuan Dao. Don't you see that there are so many Jianghu juniors killing each other under your feet? You don't want to extend a hand and meddle? Even if you can save one or two, you'll gain a lot of merit. It's much better than meddling in other people's affairs in the past." "Junior sister." Xu Qing berated from the side, but flew in front of Master Yuan Dao and said with a smile, "We haven't seen each other for many years. Have you been well, Master Yuan Dao? If you like this work, you're welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote recommendation and monthly." Chapter 1162. Master Yuan Dao also flew past Master Yunwu and landed in front of Nun Xu Qing. He bowed and said, "It's all right, how are the two of you?" "It's all right, it's just that the chi of heaven and earth has dried up. We're struggling at death's door, unable to rest in peace. Now that there's such an opportunity, we have to come and take a look. Could it be that the three masters have the same intention? Amitabha, we're also mortals, struggling at death's door, unable to rest in peace. Nun, what are you doing here? What are we doing here?" I didn't expect the enlightened monks of the Dalan Temple to have such thoughts. No wonder, no wonder. That Master Yuan Dao was stunned and asked curiously, "No wonder what?" "No wonder our sect master specifically told us to look at the big picture before we came. I've always been puzzled, only when I saw the masters did I understand." "Nun, you've said exactly what I'm thinking. Our abbot Chongqing also told us the same thing. There's really nothing we can do." Master Yunwu replied to Nun Xu Qing. Nun Xu Qing disagreed and turned to look at Taoist Hao Yun and the others. She said, "We seem to have neglected our friends from the Shindao sect." Taoist Hao Yun saw this and his body moved slightly, flying half a foot in the air. He cupped his hands and said, "I'm between the clouds and the water. Hao Yun greets my friends." "Between the clouds and the water?" Nun Xu Jia was stunned and immediately laughed. "I thought it was some old friend, so it's actually the unknown between the clouds and the water. How laughable." Taoist Hao Yun's face was also ugly, showing slight anger. But after his fingers moved slightly, he relaxed and said with a fake smile, "There used to be a so-called Shindao sect, but it was destroyed by our allies in the immortal Dao and no longer exists. Now there's only between the clouds and the water." There are many sects in the Jianghu, it's normal for them to be destroyed. Who would think about who destroyed them? Look at the Misty School, didn't they return to the Jianghu and set foot on the immortal Dao? What? Someone from the Misty School set foot on the immortal Dao? Is it Junhui? Taoist Vast Wind asked in surprise. Junhui had fallen a long time ago. I don't even know when it happened. How could it be him? Nun Xu Qing said disdainfully, then turned to ask Nun Xu Jia, "Junior sister, it seems, when Junhui fell, Great Master Yuantian had already passed away." Tribulation Master Xu thought for a moment and nodded. "That's right. Great Master Yuantian passed away early. He died from his injuries. Junhui forcefully broke through from martial arts into Dao and accidentally went mad. He ignited the true fire in his dantian and burned his internal organs to death. What a pity. The Dalan Temple still hasn't found the murderer, who killed Great Master Yuantian. I wonder if Great Master Yuantian can rest in peace in the underworld. Amitabha Abbas has misspoken. My senior brother Yuantian's Buddhist Dharma is profound, his achievements complete. He went to the Western Paradise, not the 9 Springs. Grand Master Yunwu berated. Those who died unjustly can also go to the Western Paradise. Tribulation Master Shu said curiously. I still don't know. I'll have to trouble Grandmaster Yunwu to give me some pointers. You. Grandmaster Yunwu was furious. He shrugged his shoulders and a ray of light flew out from behind him. After flying several feet, it fell down again and hovered above Great Master Vast Wind's head. It was a broadsword that was several times wider than an ordinary sword. What? You can't win and you want to fight? Tribulation Master Shu sneered and waved the long whip in her hand. Tiny flower petals grew along with the whip and revolved around Tribulation Master Shu. Back then it was you who were meddlesome. You saved that person and made me unhappy. I chased him for 3,000 miles before killing him. Because of this, I had to wander outside for several years. When I returned to Lingering Fragrance Peak, I still had to be punished by the sect master. Now that I've met you, I want to talk to you, bald donkey. Ignorant which, it was your fault in the first place and you still want to push the blame onto others. If you didn't injure me, would my Buddhist Dharma be so many years later than senior brother? Come. I want to see the power of your incense cult's peach blossom whip. It's said that your demon punishing sword is also a famous magic weapon of the Dalan Temple. I want to experience it. Tribulation Master Shu's voice changed. Her long whip shook and countless peach blossoms flashed with a bewitching red light and attacked Grandmaster Yunwu. Junior sister. Tribulation Master Shu Qing opened her mouth, but saw the peach blossoms already flashing. She then sighed and said, Junior sister, don't get angry. Also, don't forget the sect master's words. Our focus is still on the immortal mansion. You're serious? Yunwu didn't expect Tribulation Master Shu to attack so suddenly. He was caught off guard. As he flew back, he reached into his pocket and took out a fist-sized alms bowl. He shook his hand and threw it into the air. The alms bowl flipped a few times in the air with its mouth facing down. Grandmaster Yunwu made a hand seal and hit the alms bowl. With a schwa sound, a thin layer of Buddhist light was emitted from the alms bowl and tightly covered Yunwu. At this time, countless tiny peach blossom-shaped yuan qi balls hit the Buddhist light. With a series of pu sounds, countless beautiful lights were shot out before they were annihilated. As for the Buddhist light, it was also slightly weakened. Seeing that the alms bowl's defense was effective, Yunwu's heart calmed down. He put his index and middle fingers together and pointed above his head. The broadsword trembled and the tip of the sword went straight for Tribulation Master Shu's face. Good timing. Tribulation Master Shu shouted. She made a circle with the whip in her hand. The whip immediately turned into a thin thread and wrapped around the broadsword. Hee, you really dare. Grandmaster Yunwu sneered. His index and middle fingers moved slightly again, as if he was using 2 fingers to form some kind of seal. Then he pointed forward again. With a bai sound, the broadsword suddenly emitted a radiance the length of a finger, rapidly piercing towards the long whip. In the blink of an eye, just as the light of the broadsword flashed, Shu Jie's long whip had already reached it. Pa, a series of explosive sounds rang out. The light of the broadsword instantly dimmed, and the long whip was about to wrap around the broadsword like silk. Not good. Yunwu was shocked. He bent his fingers and the broadsword was like a clever little snake. The entire sword trembled and flew back. Ha, bald donkey, now you know how powerful my fragrant religion is. Eat my whip. Tribulation Master Shu was not lenient. She did not retract the whip that had turned into a thin thread. Instead, she shook her wrist and several small circles formed by peach blossoms were formed. Following the trajectory of the whip, they spun rapidly and rushed towards Yunwu. Why would this old monk be afraid of you? While Grandmaster Yunwu was shocked, he formed hand seals and chanted a few mantras at the same time. The alms bowl hanging above his head shone brightly, protecting Yunwu firmly. All of the peach blossoms hit that light screen and were like pebbles hitting the water surface, causing ripples before disappearing into nothingness. Good bald donkey, you actually have this kind of method. This old one has underestimated you. Shu Jie seemed to be really angry as soon as the fight began. She waved her long whip and countless tiny peach blossoms appeared around her. However, this time the peach blossoms did not escape from the long whip. Instead, with a paw sound, the long whip struck the brilliance sprinkled by the alms bowl. Although it struck the brilliance, it was the same as striking the alms bowl itself. The entire brilliance and the alms bowl shook a few times, almost extinguishing. Quick! Right at this moment, Grandmaster Yunwu let out a shout like spring thunder. The broadsword that was still suspended in midair earlier, following the direction of his finger, flew swiftly with a whoosh, piercing towards Abbess Shu's throat. The broadsword was extremely fast, causing Tribulation Master Shu to be slightly startled. As she dodged, she shook the whip again, circling around her body. Countless peach blossoms appeared around Tribulation Master Shu's body, protecting her from harm. Tribulation Master Shu Qing stood at the side. Seeing that Tribulation Master Shu's attack and defense were orderly, she knew that there was no big problem for now. She cast her gaze towards Yuan Dao. Seeing this, Yuan Dao waved his hand. Ba, Tribulation Master Shu Qing, could it be that you also want to test this old one's cultivation? Of course not, this old one has no grudges with your Dalan Temple. There is no reason for me to fight here. Tribulation Master Shu Qing coldly said. That's good. Yuan Dao also let out a sigh of relief and smiled. Right now this old one still has some things to ask the Shindao sects. Oh no, fellow Taoist Hao Yun of Between the Clouds and the Water. Why don't Tribulation Master be my Dalan Temple's witness? Ah, this old one has the same idea, please. Tribulation Master Shu Qing did not hesitate and immediately said. Yuan Dao nodded and flew to the side. He arrived in front of Taoist Hao Yun and placed his palms together. He loudly said, this old one has a question to ask fellow Taoist Hao Yun. Grandmaster, please speak. I will tell you everything I know. Taoist Hao Yun returned the gesture. Is that so? Yuan Dao frowned and said, I wonder. Has fellow Taoist seen this old one's senior brother, Grandmaster Yuan Tian? Grandmaster Yuan Tian is the previous abbot of your Dalan Temple. How could I not know? Taoist Hao Yun was puzzled. If you say you have seen him, then I have not. I have always been cultivating between the clouds and the water. I rarely ask about the matters of the sect or Jianghu. Is that so? Yuan Dao said. This old one seems to have seen fellow Taoist's magic tool from afar. Looks very similar to the magic tool that hit my senior brother Yuan Tian. I wonder if fellow Taoist can take it out for a look? Taoist Hao Yun laughed. What's so difficult about that? Saying so, he stretched out his hand and took out an item from his bosom. He then opened his palm as if waiting for Yuan Dao to look. However, when Yuan Dao put his palms together and looked forward, Taoist Hao Yun waved his hand and threw it towards Yuan Dao's face. Following Taoist Hao Yun's hand gesture, a fiery red light pierced towards Yuan Dao's face with incomparable speed. Unfortunately, when the red light pierced Yuan Dao's face, Yuan Dao dodged to the side and dodged the light in a flash. Taoist Hao Yun was not surprised when he saw the light miss. He reached for his waist and a light red jade flute appeared in his hand. Then he shouted, Go! Following Taoist Hao Yun's command, Taoist Hao Yu and Taoist Hao Feng also did not say anything. Hao Yu took out a small hammer and Hao Feng took out his lightning awl. From the other two sides they pounced towards Yuan Dao. Please cast a monthly vote, please cast a recommendation vote, please collect, please tip. Chapter 1163. The Three Great Masters of the Dalan Temple, Yuan Dao, Yuan Ming and Yunwu. Reverend Yunwu had a grudge with Abbess Shu in his early years. As soon as they met, they fought to the point of no return. Looking at the overflowing sword chi and the numerous whip shadows over there, it was likely that they had already fought to their heart's content. It was impossible to determine the victor in a short time. Thus, only Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming were left. He chanted, Ba, this old monk is untalented and wants to avenge the dead senior Yuandan. Eat this old monk's move. The exorcism pestle in Master Yuan Dao's hand was different from what Zhang Xiaohua had seen. The exorcism pestle looked ordinary, but when Master Yuan Dao activated it with his dermic powers, a thin layer of Buddhist light surged out from the exorcism pestle. Although it was illuminated by the blood-red light, it was still pale white. Seeing the three from Aqua Cloud Club make their move, Grandmaster Yuan Ming did not dare to hesitate. He stretched out his hand and took out an item from his bosom, tossing it into the air. It was a bead the size of an egg. The bead was also strange. When it was thrown into the air, it was only the size of an egg and emitted a weak, pale white Buddhist light. However, when Master Yuanming cast a spell, the bead seemed to be blown by the wind. It spun in the air and expanded with the wind. The pale white Buddhist light was also resplendent, and the blood-red light could not be dyed. It actually opened up a space of 1 foot in the blood-red light. Grandmaster Yunming's face was expressionless as he looked at the 3 people pouncing towards Grandmaster Yuandao. He pointed his finger, and the bead drew an arc in the air and smashed towards Taoist Hao Feng's head. Molu Pearl? When Taoist Hao Feng saw that the egg-sized bead had shrunk to the size of a wicker basket and emitted Buddhist light, he immediately revealed the origin of the bead. He sneered and said, "I heard that this bead is a famous Buddhist treasure of the Dalan Temple. I've never seen it before. I want to see if it lives up to its reputation." As he spoke, he raised the lightning awl in his hand and activated his magic power. He struck the awl out of thin air. The lightning awl let out a low rumbling sound that was close to the sound of thunder. A ball of bright light emerged from the awl and flew towards the Molu Pearl. When it flew closer, the ball of light suddenly dispersed and turned into hundreds of smaller balls of light. Between each of the balls of light, there were thin lines of light that connected them. It was like a net. At the same time, Taoist Vast Cloud brandished his raging flame flute. A ball of raging flames spurted out from the end of the flute, drawing an arc as it flew towards Grandmaster Yundao's shoulder. Taoist Vast Moon was even more arrogant. He flew in the air and activated a small hammer in his hand with his magic power. He struck it towards Grandmaster Yuandao's head. With a thunderclap, a lightning-like brilliance emerged from the hammer and flew towards Grandmaster Yuandao. Good timing. Grandmaster Yuandao did not panic. He waved the demon's subduing pestle in his hand. The demon's subduing pestle that was as light as a feather immediately stirred up a wave of air. The rich heaven and earth yuan qi passed through the talismans carved on the demon's subduing pestle and made a soul-stirring sound as it swatted towards the raging flames. The raging flames that Taoist Vast Cloud struck out were the same as the sparks that burned Old Man Shang to death. However, it was made up of many sparks gathered together. At this moment, the heaven and earth yuan qi was abundant, and the raging flames gradually grew bigger. However, when the gust of wind from the demon's subduing pestle that was flickering with Buddhist light blew over, the raging flames were like ordinary flames, flickering. Without waiting for the demon's subduing pestle to hit the raging flames, a light poof sounded and the raging flames were extinguished. At the same time that Taoist Vast Cloud struck the raging flames, Taoist Hao Yu's lightning hammer also struck Grandmaster Yuandao's eyes. Lightning was known for its speed, and Taoist Hao Yu's strike could be said to have arrived first, which was out of Grandmaster Yuandao's expectations. Fortunately, the demon's subduing pestle in Grandmaster Yuandao's hand was as light as a feather, and he casually waved it in front of his eyes to block it. Cha-cha-cha. A few blunt sounds rang out as if a few blunt knives had struck an iron rod. The sound was enough to make one's teeth ache. Grandmaster Yuandao's body slightly trembled, and his arms also trembled as if he had exhausted all his strength. The demon's subduing pestle that was as heavy as a mountain also paused in the air, and the Buddhist light was also dimmed by the lightning. Taoist Hao Yu was even more unbearable than Grandmaster Yuandao. Although he had only struck out the lightning was extinguished when it came into contact with the demon's subduing pestle. As for Taoist Hao Yu, it was as if he had been struck by the demon's subduing pestle, and he flew back more than 3 feet. Seeing that the demon's subduing pestle's attack was effective, Grandmaster Yuandao was overjoyed, and he angrily shouted, "Attack!" Suddenly, Grandmaster Yuandao's eyes widened into the shape of an angry Vajra. His slightly stooped body suddenly expanded, causing his monk's robe to flutter. His arm that was holding the demon's subduing pestle also became much thicker. The demon's subduing pestle regained its radiance after receiving Grandmaster Yuandao's power. With a wave of the demon's subduing pestle, the Buddhist light flashed in the air, and it rubbed against the dense spiritual energy of the world, creating bursts of explosive sounds. The sounds rang out continuously, and the demon's subduing pestle charged towards Taoist Hao Yu. Taoist Hao Yu was 3 feet away and had just stabilized his body. He looked at the demon's subduing pestle in amazement. Indeed, he never thought that the demon-subduing pestle would have such power in Grandmaster Yuandao's hands. Unconsciously, he became angry and shouted, "The Dalan Temple is only... Watch as I destroy you." After saying that, he clenched his teeth and poured the spiritual energy in his meridians into the lightning hammer. With a flash, a shadow twice the size of the lightning hammer appeared around the lightning hammer. Taoist Hao Yu held the lightning hammer and waved it extremely slowly, as if the lightning hammer was extremely heavy. The shadow was also driven by the lightning hammer, and it drew a string of afterimages in the air. When the lightning hammer stopped, the shadow left the lightning hammer and with a slight whimper, it faced the demon-subduing pestle head-on. Ping! With a series of chaotic sounds, the demon-subduing pestle's wave of energy was broken by the shadow of the lightning hammer. It rose several feet and the surrounding spiritual energy of the world became chaotic. At the same time, a five-colored brilliance flashed, and the shadow of the lightning hammer was also broken by the demon-subduing pestle. It turned into countless tiny specks of light, and with extreme brilliance, it dissipated in the air. "Great Master Yuandao, be careful." Nun Shu Qing's voice sounded. Great Master Yuandao was startled. Just now he used all his strength to wave the demon-subduing pestle, and put all his attention on Taoist Hao Yu. He neglected Taoist Hao Yun, whose flames were destroyed by him. Without looking back, Great Master Yuandao's divine sense swept out, and he was slightly startled. He saw that the raging flame flute in Taoist Hao Yun's hand was now very close to him. It was like a live loach and it swam to his back. Taoist Hao Yun was not in a hurry when he heard Nun Shu Qing's shout to expose his sneak attack. He only made a hand seal and his fingers moved slightly. A faint red brilliance suddenly shot out from the raging flame flute, and quickly pierced into Great Master Yuandao's back. The faint red brilliance in the bloody night sky was very dark. If one did not look carefully, they would not be able to see that it was actually an extremely thin fire needle. Amitabha Buddha. Great Master Yuandao was slightly angry. He chanted Buddha's name and his whole body flashed. A Buddha's light appeared on his body and after a few flashes, it disappeared again. Chi. The fire needle pierced into the Buddha's light on Great Master Yuandao's body. It was like snow touching fire and gradually melted. Hee. Taoist Hao Yun sneered. His left hand secretly made a hand seal for a long time, and suddenly, a faint cold light appeared in the middle of the melting fire needle. A black needle that was even thinner than the previous light needle pierced into the Buddha's light. It was different from the previous light needle. This black needle was very eye-catching in the Buddha's light. But the Buddha's light was like a bubble and the black light disappeared. The black light directly pierced into Great Master Yuandao's chest. Taoist Hao Yun was overjoyed when he saw this. His fingers moved slightly as if he was controlling the black needle. But this joy only lasted for a moment and his face revealed a slight surprise. "Good thief." Great Master Yuandao's words were like spring thunder and he angrily said, "You are really bold. Even if senior brother Yuandao died, it was under such a sinister hidden weapon. How could this old man not notice? You actually used this kind of method. Are you really confessing without being pressed? Quickly return my senior brother Yuandao's life." As he spoke, Grandmaster Yuandao took out his left hand that had been hidden in his monk robe. He held a purple and green box in his hand. The lid of the box had already been opened, and two green and purple lights formed a ring that flowed inside the box. Taoist Master Hao Yun's black needle that was so thin that it couldn't be seen was floating in the ring of light, slightly rotating. Heaven and Earth box? Taoist Hao Yun sucked in a breath of cold air. This is a legendary item. You can even find it in the Dalan Temple. I really admire you. If it wasn't to break your mystic bone needle, my Dalan Temple wouldn't have to spend so much effort to search the entire Jianghu. Unfortunately, I found it too late. I couldn't save my senior brother Yuandao's life. As he spoke, a thunderclap sounded. A light as thin as a gossamer appeared at the back of Great Master Yuandao's neck, and directly wrapped around his neck. "How dare you?" An old female voice sounded. Then countless tiny white lotuses appeared around Great Master Yuandao's body, blocking that fatal light. When Great Master Yuandao turned around, he saw Taoist Hao Yu holding the lightning hammer. His face was gloomy and his gaze was fixed on his left side. On the left side of Great Master Yuandao, Senior Nun Shuqing was holding a small white triangular flag. On the flag, there were countless white clouds that were as thin as cotton. They were lifelike, and when the flag fluttered, they seemed to have escaped from the flag. The plain cloud white flag? Taoist How You sighed. The incense sect really lives up to its name. This is an ancient divine item. My Shindao sect searched for so many years, but we couldn't find it. Unexpectedly, you guys found it. The Shindao sect is also extraordinary. The ancient divine items, the lightning awl and the lightning hammer, were all obtained by your Shindao sect. I wonder, is the heaven-shaking drum in your hands? Before Senior Nun Shuqing finished speaking, an earth-shattering sound from the side interrupted her. Chapter 1164. Speaking of which, in the air below Yao Mountain, the battle was divided into 3 areas. The one closest to Yao Mountain was the Dalan Temple's Master Yunwu and Abbess Shu of the Fragrance Cult. Due to accumulated grievances in their early years, they wielded their magic tools to fight. One used the Dalan Temple's famous weapon, the demon-slaying sword, while the other used the Fragrance Cult's inheritance, the Peach Blossom Whip. The two of them fought enthusiastically, urging their magic power to maximize the power of the magic tools in their hands. The demon-slaying sword was more than twice its usual size. Talismans faintly flowed on the sword, flashing with different splendor. The splendor radiated to the edge of the broad sword, turning into a faint Buddhist light. This Buddhist light was like a burning flame growing by a lot. Looking at Abbess Shu's peach blossom whip, it was no longer a small whip. The entire whip was made of peach blossoms, rolling along the whip from time to time. The whip swam in the air, reflecting the color of blood. It was like a blood-red python, incomparably fierce, causing one's heart to tremble. Although Master Yuanwu and Abbess Shu were peak figures in the late stage of qi refinement, and were also famous experts in the immortal puppet era, they had never seen such dense heaven and earth energy in their lives, nor had they ever urged the magic tools in their hands to such power. Although the demon-slaying sword and peach blossom whip couldn't compare to ancient divine tools like the clear sky mirror and lightning hammer, they were still magic tools used by Yu Mingxin and Wan Wuxin. Therefore, in the hands of the two experts in the immortal puppet era, it was really a bit like casting pearls before swine. Therefore, seeing such dense heaven and earth energy that was almost like the ancient immortal Tao recorded in ancient books, and the magic tools in their hands also exerting power beyond their imagination, the two of them couldn't control their emotions. And they really felt that their magic power had increased a lot compared to before, and their divine abilities had also improved by several levels. Therefore, when they used it, they also felt extremely inflated, as if they were walking on the edge of a cliff. If they weren't careful, they would lose control of their magic power. Looking at Master Yunwu, he waved the demon-slaying sword, holding it in his hand like a door knife, directly chopping down. It was an absolute martial art technique. As for Abbess Shu, she even forgot to form the incantation, and only held the main body of the peach blossom whip. With a swoosh, she pulled it out. With a loud rumble, the main body of the demon-slaying sword collided with the main body of the peach blossom whip. The peach blossoms were like splashing waves flying to various places in the air, and the demon-slaying sword also disappeared in an instant, turning into a sword that was much shorter than an ordinary sword, slowly flying towards Master Yunwu. However, if it was only the collision of these two magic weapons, it wouldn't be enough to attract the attention of Master Yuandao and Master Shuqing. At the same time that the demon-slaying sword collided with the peach blossom whip, the Dalan Temple's Master Yunming's Molu Pearl was like a round moon that was hidden in the sky, suddenly expanding, absorbing all of Master Yuanming's magic power in one go. The expansion far exceeded Master Yuanming's imagination. Master Yuanming was excited, and the incantation between his fingers became more and more obscure. This obscurity revealed his unfamiliarity, and he almost couldn't control it. The Molu Pearl was like a shooting star chasing after the sun, and with a swoosh, it struck towards Master Taoist Hao Feng's lightning awl. Master Taoist Hao Feng was shocked. How could he resist such a terrifying power with his current cultivation? Looking at the lightning awl in his hand, Master Taoist Hao Feng gritted his teeth, and immediately let go of it, spitting out a mouthful of blood onto the lightning awl. After absorbing Master Taoist Hao Feng's blood essence, the lightning awl shrank instead of expanding, until it shrank to about half of its original size. Then it flew in the air and like a phoenix nodding its head, slightly trembled 3 times, and 3 layers of thin lightning flashed, wrapping around the Molu pearl. Unfortunately, these 3 layers of lightning were still unable to stop the Molu bead's attack. With 3 puff 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 sounds, the Molu bead pierced through 3 glistening holes in the lightning net and directly struck the body of the lightning all. And this collision coincidentally happened at the same time as the demon punishing sword and the peach blossom whip. The sound that filled the sky was truly earth-shattering. Not only did Grandmaster Yuan Dao and Senior Nun Shu Jing cast sidelong glances, their figures slightly dodging. Their spiritual senses and eyes all looked over. Even the people under everyone's feet, whose heart meridians were already controlled by the wung-wung sound of the beating drum, woke up from their stupor. They looked at the 2 immortal Dao experts fighting in the air with strange gazes. Grandmaster Yuan Dao wielding the demon punishing sword and Senior Nun Shu Jing wielding the peach blossom whip were in a more wretched state. Their bodies were greatly trembling, their arms were trembling, and their meridians were trembling as they fell to the ground. As for Grandmaster Yuan Dao, who controlled the Molu Pearl, and Daoist Hao Feng, who controlled the lightning all, were slightly better off. However, their figures were also staggering, traces of blood seeping out of their mouths and noses. This was the backlash from controlling the immortal Dao artifacts. When the earth-shattering sound was heard, the blood-red brilliance in the air above Yao Mountain became even more intense. It was like a pool filled with blood, causing people to feel a burst of vexation in their hearts. It was completely different from the 7 colors in the air above Yao Mountain before. Following the collision of the 4 immortal Dao artifacts, that brilliance also suddenly emitted an even more resplendent brilliance. It was as if something had squeezed its way in. That brilliance strengthened by more than 30%, but these 3 layers were increasingly blood-stained. Jiga, a soft sound was heard, followed by Senior Nun Shu Jie's miserable cry. "Who are you?" That change suddenly appeared when everyone was looking at the brilliance in the air. When Senior Nun Shu Qing turned her gaze back to Senior Nun Shu Jie, Senior Nun Shu's body that had fallen to the ground had already stabilized. An incomparably fast black shadow leapt out from the crowd of Jianghu disciples who were gradually coming to a stop on the ground. Like an arrow leaving a bow, it shot straight towards Senior Nun Shu. In front of the black shadow there was also a black longsword that still emitted a bright light amidst the blood-red light, stabbing towards Senior Nun Shu's back. That was not the end of the change. As Senior Nun Shu screamed, an angry roar sounded at the same time. "Who are you?" Beside Master Yuan Ming, who had landed on the ground, there was also a black shadow. Like the sneak attack on Master Yuan Ming, it silently attacked Master Yuan Ming's back. Master Yuan Ming was very alert. When he saw Senior Nun Shu Jie panicking, he immediately formed a spell. The Momo pearl that was sent flying backwards immediately flew in front of him. A Buddhist light sprinkled down, protecting him completely. Ha ha ha. Master Yuan Dao, who was alerted by the 2 screams, was not alarmed but laughed instead. He flew forward and stood in the middle of the crowd. Senior Nun Shu Qing also had a smile on her face. She flew to Master Yuan Dao's side and waved the plain cloud white flag in her hand. Countless pure white tiny lotus flowers enveloped everyone in the air. She laughed loudly and said, "Fellow Taoists of the Tenryu sect, we've been waiting for you for a long time." The 2 black shadows that attacked Senior Nun Shu Jie and Master Yuan Ming were stunned. They immediately understood that they had fallen into a trap. The 2 of them looked at each other. One of them went straight up, while the other fell down, wanting to land among the Jianghu people on the ground again. "Hee, since you're all here, why are you in such a hurry to leave?" As Master Yuan Dao spoke, he waved the demon's subduing pestle in his hand and slammed it towards the Tenryu sect disciple who was flying up. When the demon's subduing pestle hit him, the Tenryu sect disciple's body twisted. In a trance, he left behind an afterimage while his body moved forward another 5 feet. "Sakura?" Master Yuan Dao's pupils shrank. He seemed to be shocked by the black shadow's levitation technique. As for the black shadow that fell to the ground, although no one chased after him, when his body landed on the layers of white lotuses, he could no longer descend. He could only stand there awkwardly. "Is it Garuda?" Senior Nun Shu Qing also couldn't confirm. She could only shout in a low voice. At this moment, although Senior Nun Shu Jie and Master Yuan Wu were about to land on the ground, they had already stabilized their bodies. The peach blossom whip and demon slaying sword in their hands were above their heads. Their faces were filled with pride. Apart from them, all the other masters of the Dalan Temple and the nuns of the incense sect seemed to know what was going on. Only Hao Yun, Hao Yu and Taoist Hao Feng of Between the Clouds and the Water had a certain expression on their faces. They seemed to be rather ashamed. Sakura, this old monk has been preparing for a long time. I've been waiting for this moment. If you didn't want to launch a sneak attack, you might not have fallen into my sex trap. Grandmaster Yuan Dao smiled. At this time, Abbess Xu Jia, Abbess Xu Jing, Grandmaster Yuan Dao, Grandmaster Yuan Ming and Grandmaster Yun Wu were using a mysterious formation to trap the two shadows of the Heavenly Dragon sect. Taoist Hao Feng's figure also landed below. He looked at the two black-clothed men of the Tenryu sect who were surrounded. Just as he was about to speak, he heard a person laugh shrilly. Even if we were to fight one-on-one, you might not be a match for us. Who would care about your ambush? That voice was indeed the leader of the Tenryu sect, Sakura. Moreover, that voice was still graceful, as if he wasn't nervous at all. It was indifferent, as if he was talking to a common friend. Hee, Lord Sakura, if we didn't have this ambush, would you dare to come forward? The person who said this was Master Yuan Dao. His words were true. Sakura was the most powerful person in the world. His cultivation was supported by the secret technique of the Tenryu sect. Not everyone could resist him. However, when faced with Master Yuan Dao, Senior Nun Shu Qing and the others, he might not be able to win in a single battle. Moreover, the Dalan Temple and the Tenryu sect were gathered here. Even if the Tenryu sect appeared, they might not be able to win. How can you guess what I'm doing? This kind of boring array formation of yours is nothing more than a small trick to this seat. Di Shirtian smiled and extended his body. Like a sparrow hawk soaring into the sky, he charged towards the ground diagonally. The Dalan Temple and the Tenryu sect seemed to have a tacit understanding. The five of them should be using some kind of formation. When Sakura moved, Senior Nun Shu Qing and Master Yuan Wu also moved. The two of them approached Sakura's back. The two of them made a hand gesture, and the peach blossom whip and demon slayer sword that had gone out of control earlier instantly shrunk to an extremely small size. They attacked Sakura's shoulders from both sides. At the same time, Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming attacked together. The demon subduing pestle and the Mao Pearl attacked the other Tenryu sect's shadow from above and below. You! That shadow exclaimed. He had just dodged the demon subduing pestle and was blown by the hurricane brought about by the demon subduing pestle. Before he could stabilize himself, the Mao Pearl hit his back. Instantly, a ray of colorful light flashed on the shadow's back. Why, that shadow directly spat out a mouthful of blood. His body was hit by the Mao Pearl and rolled a few times in the air. Chapter 1165. Seeing that Sakura was being attacked by the demon punishing sword and the peach blossom whip from both sides, Sakura saw that the situation was not good and quickly changed his position. Although his Imperial Wind technique was marvelous, it couldn't stop the Dalan Temple and incense cult from scheming. They were afraid that the Tenryu sect would attack them halfway and set up an ambush here. Dodging now was already within Master Yuan Wu's expectations. When Sakura barely dodged the demon punishing sword, Master Yuan Wu sneered and moved closer to Calamity Shu. He pinched a spell in his hand and the true qi in his meridians flowed towards the demon punishing sword. The demon punishing sword expanded a bit and became more powerful than before. Sakura dodged the demon punishing sword, but his body didn't escape from the peach blossom whip. A burst of peach blossom fluttered and blood could be seen on Sakura's right shoulder. A series of blood drops oozed out from Sakura's back and dripped into the air. Seeing that Sakura was injured, Tribulation Master Shu was overjoyed. Following the changes in the array, she also moved closer to Master Yuan Wu. The two of them crossed each other. The demon punishing sword flashed with a cold light and directly slashed towards Sakura's back. Meanwhile, the peach blossom whip also slightly moved and lashed at the other person's chest. Not only that, the Mao bead suddenly became smaller and became multicolored. Like a frightened little bird, it shot towards Sakura's chest. Under Master Yundao's control, the demon subduing pestle suddenly became slender and became heavier when it was waved. It was like a pale white rainbow, and with a schwa sound, it slammed towards another man in black from the Tenryu sect. What a pity. Sakura and the other man in black from the Tenryu sect actually didn't have the strength to fight back under the siege of 5 people. Sakura had just dodged the demon punishing sword when the peach blossom whip hit his back. When the peach blossom whip hit his body, Sakura spat out a mouthful of blood and his body seemed to be flashing with multicolored brilliance. His entire body flipped and fell into the air. The other person was even more miserable as he was hit by the Mao bead. The Mao bead flashed and suddenly pierced through the man in black's chest. That man in black didn't scream and his broken body also fell to the ground. Haha, Great Master Yuandao roared. Sakura, Sakura, you are the #1 person in the world and you actually fell into our trap. Hand over your life. After saying that, he formed a seal in his hand, and that demon-subduing pestle actually turned into a flying sword and pierced towards Sakura's back. At this crucial moment, Abbess Yunwu, Abbess Shujie, Abbess Yuanming and Abbess Shuqing were full of excitement. They didn't even blink as they wanted to see how the #1 person in the world would die under the demon-subduing pestle. But all of a sudden an abnormality occurred again. A piercing laugh that shook the heavens rose from beside Abbess Shujie and Master Yu. Shit, just as Grandmaster Shujie and Grandmaster Endo had the same thought, a sharp pain rose from their chests at the same time. The two of them lowered their heads, only to see a fist as black as ink penetrating their backs and coming out from their chests. Shock appeared in their eyes as they looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with disbelief as they spat out blood from their noses and mouths. Their eyes were filled with grayish-black color. Following that arm disappeared from their chests and their bodies fell from midair. That demon-punishing sword and peach blossom whip immediately dimmed and gradually shrunk. They slowly returned to their original appearance and then quietly floated in the air. Junior brother, Abbess Yuandao exclaimed. Junior sister, Abbess Shuqing also cried out loudly. Following Abbess Yuandao's exclamation, Abbess Yuanming woke up and roared angrily. His figure rapidly flew towards where Abbess Yunwu had fallen. Abbess Shuqing also did the same. Without hesitation she waved the plain cloud white flag in her hand and a pile of lotus flowers appeared, piling up below Abbess Shujie's fallen body. She also immediately flew over. The 5 people's array formation instantly fell apart. Following their cries, that black shadow that was standing behind Abbess Shujie and Abbess Yunwu gradually appeared. This black shadow's 2 hands clenched into fists. One on the left and one on the right, both of them penetrated the bodies of the 2 people. His arms were stained with blood as he slowly retracted them. You are the Sakura? Abbess Yuandao flew in midair and was abnormally shocked. Following that, he clenched his teeth and stopped his hand seals. The long sword formed by the demon's subduing pestle sped up by 30%. With a flash of light, it was about to pierce the back of the Sakura. Unfortunately, at this moment the Sakura who had just appeared stretched out his hand. A gust of black gas appeared and pulled the previous Sakura to the side. The demon's subduing pestle naturally missed its target. With a pu sound, it pierced that person's left arm and easily chopped off his entire arm. With a miserable cry, the Sakura, who had fallen to the ground, staggered a few times. He still couldn't stand steadily and with a plop, he fell to the ground. JJ. Of course I'm the Sakura. Who else would pretend to be me? The last one to appear, Sakura laughed sinisterly. He didn't remove the cloak that covered his face. Your Dahlin Temple still hasn't given up on your evil intentions. You actually still want to plot against my Tenryu sect? There's also the Aroma cult. You only have 2 surviving abbesses and you still want to rely on the Dahlin Temple's scheme. If you don't pay the price, how would you know my Tenryu sect's methods? Sakura sneered. When you guys were fighting with the 3 people from the Shindao sect, I already saw the clues. You actually still wanted to set a trap? The grudge between Yuanwu and Shujie is too childish. Next time you have to be more careful when setting up a trap. The 3 spiritual masters between the clouds and the water were extremely embarrassed. Seeing that they were being used as chess pieces by the people from the 3 sects, they didn't know what to say. Sakura spoke again. I'm the #1 person in the world. You guys are old, and your beauty is waning. It's better to die early. As he spoke, Sakura waved his hand. The people who had stopped fighting on the ground and were looking up at the disciples of the various sects in the air. Suddenly, a few people flew out and were about to fly away. You? Who are you? All of a sudden, Sakura also exclaimed, followed by a series of screams. His entire body flew out and directly flew into the air. A jade-like hand was inserted into Sakura's back. This. Not only the three spiritual masters between the clouds and the water, even Nun Shuqing, who was holding Nun Shujie in her arms, was extremely shocked. Only Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming of the Dalan Temple didn't have too much of an expression other than grief and indignation. Sakura was indeed amazing, worthy of being called the #1 person in the world. After he exclaimed, he threw his left hand and a black fog rose behind him. The person who was inserted into Sakura's back didn't hesitate. His thin and small body immediately pulled up and flew high above everyone's heads. His eyes were hale and hearty as he looked at the black fog and the gradually disappearing figure of Sakura. He sighed secretly. Following the disappearance of Sakura's figure, the few black shadows that had just flown away from the ground were also stunned. Just as they were about to change their positions, they heard the thin and small body shout angrily. Attack! Master Yuan Dao and Master Yunming's demons subduing pestle and molu beads struck out like meteors. They had planned this for a long time and the people of the Tenryu sect were caught off guard. Among them, 2 people were already hit by the 2 magic weapons. Their figures staggered and fell into the dust like falling leaves. However, just as their figures landed on the ground, several people beside them pinched the jade talisman in their hands and several clouds of black smoke rose. The people in the air, the people on the ground, and the heavily injured Sakura, and the others all disappeared without a trace. This. Taoist Master Hao Yun and the others were dumbstruck as they watched the series of unforeseen events in the sky. They suddenly felt that they were nothing more than a supporting role in this grand event. Boundless sorrow rose in their hearts. Until Master Yuan Dao flew into the air, he put his palms together and saluted in an unusual offensive manner. He said, "Disciple, greets Master Tiangang." The 3 people suddenly realized and didn't dare to be negligent. They flew in front of that thin and small monk and said with lowered brows, "Disciple, Shindao Sec's Hao Yun Hao Yu Hao Feng, greets Dalan Temple's Master Tiangang." That thin and small monk wasn't anyone else but the old monk that Zhang Xiaohua saw in the Dalan Temple's sutra depository. Old monk Tiangang was expressionless as he waved his hand and said, Amit Ba, don't be so courteous." This old monk never thought that the Shindao sect actually had such a powerful inheritance. In the future, I'm afraid that the 3 sects of the immortal Tao are going to stand on equal footing. Master Tiangang. Nun Shujing was extremely sorrowful. She carried Nun Shujie's body. She had long lost all signs of life. Master Yuan Ming was the same. He carried Master Yunwu's body and said sorrowfully, "Master, Junior Brother Yunwu, Master, please be merciful." Amit Ba, life and death are fated, riches and honor are in heaven. The 2 of them died because of Sakura. This poor monk also has no power to reverse the situation. What can I do? Master Yuan Dao's eyes were filled with sorrow and said, "Master, it's all disciples' fault for being foolish and arranging such a flawed plan to capture Sakura and the rest in one fell swoop. Unexpectedly, real and illusory and real. We laid down a maze for Sakura and Sakura was also laying down a maze for us. Who would know who was in whose maze?" Master Tiangang sighed and said, "Not only you, even this old monk. I was also bewitched by Sakura and thought that you guys were already captured easily and didn't need this old monk to make a move. I actually let martial nephew Yunwu and Nun Shujie fall. This is truly this old monk's fault." Immediately after, Master Tiangang chanted the name of Buddha again and said, "However, subduing demons and devils is a righteous act. Using violence to exchange violence will inevitably have a price. Martial nephew Yunwu met the calamity with his own body. This can be considered as obtaining what you asked for and not wasting your life's cultivation. With this merit, you will definitely be buried in the Origin Returning Tower and achieve eternal fame." Yes, Master is extremely right. Amit Ba. Master Yuan Dao put his palms together and said softly. Only Nun Shuqing opened her mouth and looked at Nun Shujie's body that was gradually turning cold. She gritted her teeth and raised her head to look at the peach blossom whip floating in midair. With a wave of her hand, the peach blossom whip flew into Nun Shuqing's hand. Nun Shuqing didn't even look at the crowd and flew straight to the east side of Mountain Yao. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Chidian.com to vote recommendation and monthly. Chapter 1166. Amit Ba. Seeing Shuqing Nun fly away without saying goodbye, Master Tiangang sighed. I'm afraid Nun misunderstood. Master Yuandao disagreed. Master, don't think too much. Our Dalan temple is the same as her incense sect. We both lost one person. What's there to misunderstand? We just didn't tell them about the plan to ambush Sakura. This is also to keep it a secret. We can't let the Tenryu sect know about it beforehand. Forget it. Master Tiangang waved his hand. Let's not talk about incense sect. It's a pity that we didn't manage to kill Sakura even after sacrificing 2 lives. We only managed to injure him severely. However, we took the lives of 3 heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect and cut off one of Garuda's arms. Yes, this is all thanks to Master Tiangong's calculation ability. Master Yuandao said respectfully. Master Tiangang looked at Yao Mountain and shook his head. Origin returning tribulation. Origin returning tribulation. Only by killing as many people as possible can you save your own life. If you show any mercy, you can only let others take your life. It's midnight. The immortal mansion hasn't appeared yet? Grandmaster Tiangang looked at the gradually dimming bloody light above Yao Mountain and murmured, We haven't even seen a corner of the immortal mansion, yet so many people have already lost their lives. If the immortal mansion is born, who knows how many more people will die? Excellent, excellent. Master Tiangang flew towards the west. Master Yuandao and Master Yuanming carried Master Yunwu's corpse and left as well. Hao Yun and the other 2 perfected masters stood in the air for a long time. They looked at each other and nodded slightly. Then they flew down and entered the tent. On the southern side of Yao Mountain, the martial artists who had lost their minds under the blood-red brilliance had long been shocked by the earth-shattering sounds and the unimaginable supernatural powers when they were fighting with the immortals in midair. They all looked up and watched with envy. As they stopped fighting and the blood-red sky above Yao Mountain began to dim, the fighting around Yao Mountain gradually came to a stop. At this point, everyone gradually came to their senses. Perhaps it was because they were tired, or perhaps they felt that it was still too early to make a move. They had already stopped attacking and were only vigilantly guarding their surroundings, no longer rashly attacking. But the battle just now was so cruel. Every blade cut into flesh and every sword took a life. It was not an exaggeration to say that blood flowed like a river and corpses floated for miles. In just a short while, for out of the tens of thousands of Jianghu people had died in the chaos, countless amounts of blood flowed out from these people's bodies and seeped into the ground, without a trace. Looking at the current Yao Mountain, the basket-sized ball of light in the air had already expanded to a radius of 30 feet. The blood-red color of the ball of light had gradually dimmed and was replaced by a faint rainbow color. It was the same color as the one that had appeared in the air above Yao Mountain. Everyone, including Nun Jingyi, was shocked to see Xu Jie's body. She was one of the top masters in Jianghu. How could she die so easily? However, when they heard about the thrilling battle just now and the battle of wits between the Dalan Temple and the Tenryu sect, everyone was speechless. The Dalan Temple's plan to ambush the Tenryu sect was something that Master Chongqing had discussed with Nun Jingyi. Previously, during the Wulin assembly of the incense cult, Nun Jingyi already had a deep fear of Sakura's cultivation. If there was a chance to join forces with the Dalan Temple to get rid of Sakura, Nun Jingyi would definitely not let go of it. However, she did not expect that the mantis stalks the cicada, unaware of the oriole behind. Nun Jingyi did not expect that Sakura had long planned this and took advantage of the situation to injure both the Dalan Temple and the incense cult. This was not all. What Nun Jingyi did not expect was that Master Tiangang of the Dalan Temple was actually still alive in this world. He actually participated in this and actually became the shepherd boy who hunted the oriole. However, since Master Tiangang could become the shepherd boy, then he would definitely be able to mess up the entire situation before the oriole pecks at the mantis. This way, Master Tiangang would not be able to injure Sakura and kill the 3 heavenly kings of the Tenryu sect. But Master Yuanwu of the Dalan Temple and Xu Jie of the incense cult would not die. Thinking about it this way, Master Tiangong's goal was really thought-provoking. Nun Jingyi immediately became alert. While arranging for the outer disciples to go to the nearest town to buy coffins, she also pulled Nun Shuqing, Nun Shuezhen, Peacock and the rest to discuss through the night. Not only were the disciples of the incense cult discussing countermeasures, the campsites of the Dalan Temple between the clouds and the water and the alliance of the righteous sects were also brightly lit. Not a single person was resting. It was as if the changes in the strength of the various sects and the response to the appearance of the immortal mansion were all in full swing. The only thing that did not change was that the ball of light in the sky above Yao Mountain was gradually expanding. By the time the stars had faded and the moon had set, the east was already showing the color of a fish's belly. The ball of light had already expanded to the size of 1 li. At this moment the people of the Jianghu who were waiting at the foot of Yao Mountain had already seen it clearly. This was not some passage to the immortal realm, nor was it some legendary magical treasure of the immortal path. It was indeed a towering, simple and unadorned ancient hall that was surrounded by immortal clouds. As for the expanding ball of light, it was the outline of the hall that was gradually revealed when it appeared from the void. At this moment, it was as if an invisible hand was slowly lifting the veil that covered the face of the hall. Bit by bit, the proud face of the hall was revealed in the sky above Yao Mountain. Speaking of which, it was strange. Earlier at night, the blood-red brilliance shone and the hall was revealed extremely slowly. But when dawn came and the brilliance changed to 7 colors, the speed at which the hall appeared seemed to be much faster than at night. By the time the rising sun shone on the hall in the sky, more than half of the hall had already been revealed from the void. In the distant sky to the south of Yao Mountain, Zhang Xiaohua concealed her body and flew forward rapidly. She used her naked eyes to look at the 7-colored brilliance of the hall that reflected the sunlight. She could not help but feel jealous. The immortal mansion that even Wan Wuxing covets is really a treasure. It's a pity that it appeared at the wrong time. My Beidou school has not yet been established and there are only 7 disciples who have not achieved anything. If it had appeared hundreds or thousands of years later, even if I'm not here, my disciples would have the strength to fight for the immortal mansion. But no. I can only go to the side and watch the show. Zhang Xiaohua, who was trying to steal while she was at it, had already landed far away. After changing her appearance, she held a jujube wooden stick in her hand and rode a fine horse that she had gotten from God knows where. She followed the official road and headed towards Yao Mountain. Earlier, when she was flying in the sky, Zhang Xiaohua did not notice the situation on the ground. But now she was surprised to find that there were not many people on the official road. Occasionally, there would be a few brave people who heard the sound of a horse's hooves. Before they could even turn around to see who it was, they would immediately jump off the official road and run away in a hurry as if they were afraid of being seen by Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua did not understand at first, but then she slowly figured it out. Most of the people in Jianghu were arrogant and unruly. They were not people who followed the rules. Now that they were all gathered near Yao Mountain, how could there not be a tragedy of the weak being eaten by the strong? Presumably, this kind of thing had become a common occurrence on the official road. Although this place was still very far from Yaoshan and there were no Jianghu people on the official road, but, once bitten by a snake 10 years shy of ropes. This was unavoidable. Sigh. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and could not help but feel emotional. When people in Jianghu saw the strong bullying the weak, most people would sympathize with the weak. But, when these weak people in Jianghu saw the poor people, could they still maintain a humble attitude and conduct? The answer was extremely uncertain. Even Zhang Xiaohua himself could not give a clear answer. Zhang Xiaohua was deep in thought. After riding for more than 4 hours, they finally arrived at the foot of Yao Mountain. There was still some distance to Yao Mountain, but there were already many Jianghu people. There were even many Jianghu sects who had spontaneously formed teams and set up checkpoints on the official road and by the side of the mountain to prevent idle people from entering. It was not clear whether they were trying to prevent the innocent villagers from dying or to prevent the disciples of other sects from entering. Zhang Xiaohua did not want to waste time with them. She hit the people who were blocking her with her cudgel and flew into the air. In a flash, she fell into the crowd and disappeared without a trace. At this time it was already past noon. The early winter sun shone warmly on everyone's bodies. If it was any other day they would definitely have crossed their arms. Perhaps they would even squat down and talk with smiles. However, at this time, everyone was holding weapons in their hands. Their eyes were fiery as they stared at the sky. Occasionally they would even turn their eyes as they carefully observed their surroundings. Zhang Xiaohua landed on the ground. In a flash she disappeared into the crowd. Then like the others she found a big tree and jumped up half a branch. Then Zhang Xiaohua raised her head and looked at the main hall in the sky above Yao Mountain. She released her divine sense slightly. Then Zhang Xiaohua was stunned. She thought to herself, as expected of an immortal mansion. This Yao Mountain, the vital energy of heaven and earth is very rich. If any disciple wants to absorb vital energy into their body and set foot on the path of immortality, it will be a good opportunity. However, when he sniffed the air he was stunned. Apart from the freshness of the vital qi of heaven and earth, there was also a thick stench of blood. Oh my god, I'm scared. Have many people died? Zhang Xiaohua was still some distance away from the foot of Yao Mountain. Moreover, the corpses that had been killed by the crowd last night had already been taken care of. That blood had seeped into the ground. Apart from the smell of blood in the air, it was really impossible to see the terrible scene last night. However, about 20 feet away, beside a protruding slope, the conversation between two people attracted Zhang Xiaohua's attention. Vil 7. Can you still walk? A woman's voice asked. Sai, I'll just have to. Qilian, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have come to join in the fun. Little Seven's voice was weak. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. If you like this work, you are welcome to come to Qidian. Chapter 1167. It's okay, Shaoqi. As long as we are still alive, we can still live in the future. Our Huanfeng Mountain Villa will have a chance to make a comeback. The woman called Qilian said softly. You are the best, Qilian. Shaoqi was touched and said softly, actually, last night. I don't know what happened. I didn't plan to go forward, but it felt strange. Yes, it's not just you. Felt the same. It was as if all the blood in my body was stirred up and rushed to my head. I didn't think about the consequences at all and didn't think about whether I had the strength or not. I just rushed forward. And there were a lot of people rushing forward from behind. We had no choice but to go. Shaoqi said with lingering fear. The key was later. I don't know what happened. I wanted to squeeze through the crowd and saw someone blocking me. I wanted to stab that person to death with my sword. Don't say any more. Qilian seemed to be very scared. Her voice was trembling as she said, talking about last night. I'm scared. It seemed to have killed 2 people too. I killed even more. Shaoqi hesitated, but it was very chaotic at that time. Who knows who they were? Maybe at this time, Master and Senior Brother haven't come back yet. Maybe. Qilian said sadly, how about, Shaoqi, we should go first. It wasn't easy for us to run to the outermost area. Let's take advantage of the fact that there are fewer people, to save our lives first. But, Qilian, it wasn't easy for us to get here. And that immortal's mansion is about to come out. If we have the fate of immortals, wouldn't we be able to reach the heavens in one step? Shaoqi said hesitantly. But there was no hesitation in her voice. Shaoqi, your legs are already like this. You still think about that illusory immortal's mansion? Qilian said angrily. Can you fight against the Dalan Temple fragrance cult and between the clouds and the water? You saw it yourself last night. The people flying in the sky were all disciples of these 3 sections. They are all immortals. Dragon God Sect's #1 person, Di Shirtian, died in their hands. Little Seven, do you think you can compare to Di Shirtian? Sakura is dead? How is that possible? Zhang Xiaohua, who was eavesdropping on their conversation, was stunned. Is she here too? Qilian, if it was before, you could say that the immortal mansion was illusory, but look at the sky above Yao Mountain. It's an immortal mansion right in front of us. Furthermore, the immortal mansion should only be occupied by the virtuous. Why did the Dragon God Sect return in defeat? That means they have no morals. I know that I don't have much innocent blood on my hands. The mortal mansion. I might still have a chance. But Qilian still wanted to persuade him. Shaoqi scolded, Qilian, don't say, but, anymore. You and I were able to survive last night, which is the most powerful evidence that we have the opportunity to seize the immortal mansion. Fight, don't stay, wouldn't I be letting down last night's battle? Qilian didn't say anything. After a long while, she faintly said, Little Seven, this concubine has given you everything in hopes that we can grow old together. If you insist on staying, this concubine will accompany you. Sister Lian, don't worry. I have confidence. I am definitely the master of the immortal mansion. I will definitely lead you into the immortal mansion and announce to the world that you are the mistress of the immortal mansion. My Huanfeng villa will be in this immortal mansion from now on. Little 7, as long as you are willing, even if it's a broken cave, I will follow you. Qi Lian sighed. Behind them Zhang Xiaohua was standing. Her gaze was extremely complicated as she looked at this pair of unfortunate mandarin ducks. Her heart was filled with endless emotions. She really couldn't think of what confidence little 7 had to say that she was the master of the immortal mansion. Even Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to be so arrogant. She only wanted to play the side drum and see what benefits there were. The ignorant are fearless. Zhang Xiaohua looked around. Around her there were people with determined faces. Presumably, everyone had the same thought in their hearts. Only they were the destined person. Everything was arranged for them. Forget it. Zhang Xiaohua looked at Xiao Qi, whose leg was injured, and the beautiful young woman beside him, whose eyes were filled with love. He sighed and waved his hand, sealing their major pressure points. He thought to himself, with your martial arts skills, you won't be able to defeat me. You can't even compare to the elite disciples of the Misty Mountain Villa. You still dare to come to Yao Mountain to seize the immortal mansion? Seeing that Qi Lian is so infatuated, you two should sleep here for 2 days. After 2 days this immortal mansion still doesn't belong to someone, then you may really have some immortal fate. After dealing with this pair of unfortunate mandarin ducks in the Huanfeng Villa, Zhang Xiaohua didn't have the heart to care about anything else. She looked up at the sky and above Yao Mountain in the distance. A huge palace surrounded by immortal clouds had already appeared in the void. The style of the palace was extremely simple. It looked like an inexplicable aura was directly reflected in one's heart through the naked eye. And a sense of danger arose spontaneously from the bottom of Zhang Xiaohua's heart. Zhang Xiaohua's eyes narrowed slightly. She thought to herself, immortal mansion should be a place where immortals live. Even if there are some restrictions in the cave, it shouldn't be so dangerous. My intuition has always been sensitive. I'm afraid that this immortal mansion has something strange. Oh, right, according to what little 7 and Qi Lian said, last night, there was a flash of red light that confused everyone's minds. My goodness, what kind of immortal mansion is this? Just as he was thinking, a series of crackling sounds rang out. The immortal residence that looked like it had pierced through the sky above Yao Mountain was now flashing with endless lightning from the parts that had already been exposed. There was also a lot of lightning lingering around the lightning like a bunch of exploding fireworks. It was quite dazzling. In just a moment a hurricane blew past. An incomparably ancient aura was emitted from the air and directly penetrated into everyone's hearts. Zhang Xiaohua was even more so. She raised her head in astonishment. The immortal mansion in the sky was now different from before. Although most of its outline had been revealed, they could only see the vague outline and the style of the palace. If they looked closely they couldn't see it. It was as if there was an egg-white membrane between the palace and Yao Mountain. It couldn't be seen through. At this moment the lightning was like a pair of scissors that cut through the membrane. Or perhaps it was the sharp corner of the palace that pierced through the membrane between the void and the mortal world. More than half of the palace was finally clear. At the same time as the palace, the qi of heaven and earth came out like a flood. Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to release his divine sense. When he felt a fresh gust of wind blow in from the sky, his divine sense already saw the surging qi of heaven and earth like waves crashing against the shore, drowning his entire body. Bliss, incomparable bliss. Zhang Xiaohua never thought that there would be a day when he would be drowned by qi of heaven and earth. Very naturally Zhang Xiaohua greedily breathed in through his nose and mouth. The Carefree Heart Sutra instantly activated, and the fresh qi of heaven and earth was like a rush of enlightenment, entering Zhang Xiaohua's pores. However, after a while the qi of heaven and earth gradually thinned out, like a stream flowing into the sea, very quickly being diluted. Sigh, when will I be able to enjoy the immortal Tao to my heart's content? Zhang Xiaohua thought as he looked at the palace that had already been revealed. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua's heart was burning even more fervently. His eyes shone brightly as he looked at the sky. He saw that the palace was made of an unknown material. It was light red all over, and the style of the palace was something Zhang Xiaohua had never seen before. The round roof was like a semicircular eggshell. However, on this eggshell, there were all sorts of strange decorations. These decorations were very strange. Some looked like earthworms, some looked like turtles, and some looked like little birds. In short, they covered the eggshell. Under the flowing light, it felt as if these decorations were about to move, almost as if they were alive. What? In ancient times, immortals lived in bird nests like this? Looking at this shape, Zhang Xiaohua immediately thought of the bird nests he dug out from the trees outside the Guizhuang house when he was young. It was an inverted bird's nest. The buzzing sound in the sky had stopped since dawn, but at this moment, it seemed to have started again. Not knowing whether it was in the ears or in the heart, Zhang Xiaohua felt as if her entire heart was about to jump out of her stomach. Suddenly there was a loud whang. It was like the sound of a millstone being moved in the countryside magnified 10,000 times. The sound was so loud that it seemed like it was going to crush Zhang Xiaohua's organs into powder. However, just as Zhang Xiaohua was about to cover her ears, the sound suddenly stopped. In an instant the entire world was silent. Not even a trace of sound could be heard. The entire Yao Mountain also froze. Everyone was stunned on the spot. After a moment, someone moved and the entire Yao Mountain seemed to come to life. Everyone seemed to have come to life and was about to move. The sound reverberated through the world, piercing through the sky. Around Yao Mountain, the clouds that had been leisurely just a moment ago were instantly shattered. At this moment, the palace that looked like a bird's nest suddenly emitted a blood-red brilliance, as if a lively heart was beating. The blood-red brilliance seemed to swell as if it was breathing. That brilliance was like a spreading ray of light, spreading in all directions wave by wave. He did not know how the others were feeling, but at that moment, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly felt as if he had fallen into a blood-red vat. Even his breathing became difficult. Just as he was about to circulate his heart technique, a divine sense that was as sturdy as a rock, as vast as the primordial, as majestic as a mountain, as vast as the sea, and as irresistible as the heavens and earth spread out from within the palace. It was as if a god was looking down on all living beings from within the palace. Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip. Chapter 1168. The divine sense swept past the crowd rapidly, not pausing on them at all, and continued to travel into the distance. When the divine sense swept past Zhang Xiaohua, it did not stop at all, as if Zhang Xiaohua was a weak little ant. However, Zhang Xiaohua felt a completely different feeling. He only felt his heart palpitate, just like when he saw that huge eye in the underground magma of the deserted island. Yes, the palpitating feeling now was 10,000 times more intense than that. Zhang Xiaohua was aghast. Could it be that there are immortals in this palace? Then, without waiting for Zhang Xiaohua to shift his shocked gaze away from the palace, an incomparably majestic aura emanated from within the palace. Instantly, a feeling of insignificance rose in Zhang Xiaohua's heart, an incomparable feeling of insignificance, as if he was facing a god that he should be worshipping. An irresistible pressure pressed down on his mind from all directions, and in the face of this pressure, Zhang Xiaohua naturally knelt down. However, just as his knees were about to touch the ground, the dragon-tiger talisman in his Naiwan palace, which had been motionless all this while, suddenly emitted an extremely resplendent golden light, and a faint majestic aura emanated from Zhang Xiaohua's Naiwan palace. Although the majestic aura was extremely weak, but it had a supreme irresistible aura, and this irresistible aura was able to withstand the pressure. Hence, Zhang Xiaohua frowned, and a resistance came from the bottom of his heart. His entire body froze in place, and he did not kneel down again. Looking to the side, everyone was kneeling on the ground, and some were even prostrating themselves on the ground, not daring to lift their heads. Zhang Xiaohua seemed to be able to hear a voice coming from afar. It was as if an ethereal voice had entered his heart, and the pressure around him suddenly increased by a lot. A loud sound was heard, and another golden light flashed from the core of Zhang Xiaohua's Naiwan palace. A phoenix captive appeared from the core, and that phoenix captive flew one round in Zhang Xiaohua's Naiwan palace, flapping its golden wings. Those slender and curved phoenix eyes gave off a feeling of looking down at the world, as if it could see through everything and look outside. At the same time, the dragon and tiger captives were also flipping around. One was swimming beside the phoenix, while the other was roaring below the phoenix. The three captives seemed to have formed a mysterious balance, and in an instant the pressure on Zhang Xiaohua's mind was greatly reduced. Then the true energy in Zhang Xiaohua's body suddenly surged, and his entire meridian seemed to be about to leave his body. A majestic aura that Zhang Xiaohua himself was also charging towards the source of the pressure. A sound of surprise was heard. Although Zhang Xiaohua couldn't see it, he heard it clearly in his heart. Just as the sound of surprise was heard, a feeling of fear came from the aura. Instantly, the unparalleled pressure suddenly disappeared, and in the naked eye, the blood-red color of the palace suddenly disappeared as well. What replaced it was the colorful brilliance coming from the various decorations above the circular palace. Zhang Xiaohua's head was covered in cold sweat, and he felt as if he was about to collapse. He forced himself to stand up, but his legs gave way and he simply sat cross-legged on the ground. Looking around, everyone was in a sorry state. They were either lying on the ground, prostrating themselves in worship, or lying on the ground. In short, no one was able to stand in one piece. Wing wing wing. The sound of the grinding stone suddenly sounded again. Zhang Xiaohua forced himself to look up, and to his surprise he found that the circular palace was slowly rotating. At the same time as the palace rotated, more parts of it were revealed in the air. In the next 2 hours the palace no longer emitted the blood-red brilliance, and the circular palace also rotated to the other side. A square palace, similar to the one they usually saw, rotated in front of Zhang Xiaohua and the others. At this time the sky was already dark, but under the colorful brilliance of the palace, the entire Yao Mountain was as bright as day, and every detail of Yao Mountain could be seen clearly. Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to walk forward and still stayed at the protrusion, sizing up the palace from afar. This palace was somewhat similar to the incense cult's Immerse palace, with carved beams and painted pillars and a majestic palace gate. It really had a great style. However, from afar it seemed a lot smaller than Immerse Palace. However, Zhang Xiaohua knew that this was only because she was standing far away, and the palace was in the air above Yao Mountain, so it looked small. If it really was compared to Immerse Palace, it would be countless times bigger. When the palace gate faced the south side of Yao Mountain, it stopped rotating. There was a plaque above the gate, but Zhang Xiaohua was too far away, so she couldn't see it clearly. After thinking about it for a moment, Zhang Xiaohua clenched his teeth and formed a hand seal. His figure flashed to the ground, heading straight for the foot of Yao Mountain. When the palace stopped rotating, a black area the size of the palace appeared in the night sky. This black area was even darker than the night sky, and it could be seen with the naked eye. In this red area, there was a flash of lightning followed by a series of thunderclaps. After the thunderclaps, the black area slowly shrank. At the same time, the palace that was still floating in the air a moment ago emitted a buzzing sound and gradually descended towards Yao Mountain. After last night's battle, all the disciples of the 4 sects left Yao Mountain. There was not a single person left on Yao Mountain. However, just as the palace was descending on the south side of Yao Mountain, near the waist of the mountain, there was a sudden distortion of light. The trees gradually disappeared, revealing a large open space. On the open space, there were dozens of disciples dressed in Aqua Cloud's uniform. Among these disciples, there were 2 people holding a half-foot-long brocade cloth. The brocade cloth's brilliance had dimmed, as though it was suppressed by the pressure of the palace. When the group of disciples saw the brocade cloth in their hands shrink, they looked at the palace above their heads and cried out in alarm. They no longer dared to stay on Yao Mountain. Each of them used their qinggong to rush down Yao Mountain and ran toward the camp between the clouds and the water. Although Zhang Xiaohua couldn't see Bai Yanqiu's expression, she could imagine the embarrassment on Bai Yanqiu's face. Less than an hour later, the heavens and earth began to shake and the ground began to tremble. Only then did the floating palace truly land on Yao Mountain. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua had already arrived near the camp between the clouds and the water. When she emerged from the ground, everyone was staring at the dazzling palace in a daze. No one noticed that a middle-aged man of average height had appeared in front of the camp between the clouds and the water. As soon as the loud rumbling sound was heard, A dozen or so figures flew over from the east and west sides of Yao Mountain. Even more people used their qigong to gather around Aqua Cloud's camp from the ground. For a moment the entire south side of Yao Mountain was in an uproar. "Look, there's a flight of stairs in front of the palace," someone shouted, and everyone was pleasantly surprised. They all stopped and looked at the magnificent and gorgeous palace again. Sure enough, at the majestic palace gate, there was a flight of stairs that was only big enough for one person to pass through. It slowly extended down Yao Mountain to the foot of the mountain. For a moment no one dared to act rashly. Zhang Xiaohua wasn't the only one who knew about the aura that came from the palace. Everyone had seen it with their own eyes. Everyone thought that when the flight of stairs extended from the palace gate to the foot of the mountain, the palace gate would definitely open, and the immortal who had released the terrifying aura would definitely push the door open. However, when the flight of stairs extended to the foot of the mountain, the palace gate still hadn't been pushed open. Instead, the signboard that had been covered by the seven-colored brilliance was gradually revealed. There were two incomparably huge words that appeared in front of everyone's eyes. These two words weren't ancient words, so no one knew what they meant. They only felt a sense of insignificance in their eyes. On the south side of Yao Mountain, around the palace's flight of stairs, tens of thousands of martial artists stood with their heads held high, silently waiting for something. However, after another hour, there was no change in the palace. At this moment, an old man who was closest to the flight of stairs suddenly stood up. His body straightened, and like a wisp of smoke he rushed up the stairs. "Li Su, how dare you!" Behind him, Bai Yanqiu and Bai Zhongmen between the clouds and the water were incomparably embarrassed and angry. Li Su didn't turn around. He channeled all the internal energy in his body to his feet and focused on using his qigong. With a whoosh, everyone came to their senses. They all mobilized the internal energy in their meridians and prepared to use their qigong to rush up the stairs. At this moment, a brilliance brighter than the full moon rose from the west side of the stairs. It flew at an extremely fast speed towards Li Su, who was about to step onto the stairs. It was the Molu Pearl of the Dalan Temple's master Yuan Ming. Seeing this, Li Su was shocked. However, his feet didn't stop moving. His right hand pulled out a dagger from his waist, wanting to block it. Who knew that when his dagger stabbed into the Molu Pearl, he only felt his hand lighten. He stabbed into empty air. Before he could turn around to look for the Molu Pearl, he saw a bright light. The Molu Pearl suddenly appeared in front of him. Before Li Su could react, the Molu Pearl hit Li Su's forehead. With a pu sound, the Molu Pearl easily broke Li Su's head. Li Su didn't even make a sound. His corpse fell to the side of the stairs, and his feet were only half a step away from the stairs. Ah! Seeing Li Su's tragic death, those who hadn't moved yet all stopped. However, their internal energy was circulating rapidly in their meridians. They wanted to find a more suitable opportunity. "Bai Zhongmen, please ask your disciples to retreat 10 feet. A voice sounded from the west side of Yao Mountain. It was the Dalan Temple's abbot, Master Chong Sheng. "Ridiculous." Bai Yanqiu sneered. "Master Chong Sheng, don't forget that the south side of Yao Mountain is where I'm stationed between the clouds and the water. What right do you have to ask us to retreat 10 feet? Please vote monthly, recommend, bookmark, and tip." Chapter 1169. As soon as Bai Yanqiu finished speaking, a small awl flew up from the ground. It was Taoist Hao Feng's lightning awl. The lightning awl flickered with electricity as it flew towards the Molu Pearl, forming a stalemate with it. Whoosh! The demon's subduing pestle in Taoist Yundao's hand also expanded, emitting a faint Buddhist light as it flew to the side of the Molu Pearl. "Hee, the Dalan Temple only knows how to bully others." A voice rang out from the crowd between the clouds and the water. Taoist Hao Yu's lightning hammer also transformed into a huge hammer and flew into the air to boost their morale. "Amitabha Buddha, excellent, excellent." A deafening Buddhist chant resounded throughout the entire place. A seven-colored circle slowly rose from the side of the Dalan Temple. In the middle of the circle was a cross-shaped intersection. The intersection formed a corner outside the circle. The five-colored brilliance was emitted from the surroundings of the circle, while the black and white colors were emitted from the intersection. "Wheel of Evolution?" A cry of surprise came from Shuiyun. Just as the words left his mouth, a series of rapid thunder came from the place where the voice came from. It was also a round object with a faint red glow that suddenly rose up. That object also grew bigger and bigger. When it reached midair, everyone could clearly see that it was a huge drum. Although there was no drumstick, faint drumming could be heard from the big drum. And that drumming was actually the sound of thunder. Sky-shaking drum? The deafening voice laughed. This set of ancient artifacts has indeed been obtained by the Shandao sect. But, even if you have the sky-shaking drum, what can you do? Sure enough, although the sky-shaking drum was very intimidating and had a slightly stronger power when combined with the lightning hammer and the thunderall, it still seemed a little weak under the seven-colored brilliance of the wheel of mortal evolution and the Buddha's light of the demon subduing pestle and the Molu pearl. What if we add the plain cloud white flag? An old female voice rang out from the incense sect. Then a small flag flew into the air and unfolded slightly. Countless tiny white lotuses surrounded the sky-shaking drum, lightning hammer and lightning all, blocking the Buddhist light outside of the white lotuses. Master Shu Qing, you? An old monk wearing an ordinary kasaya flew into the air. It was Master Tiangang who had just chanted the Buddhist chant. What about me? Master Tiangang? Nun Shu Qing also flew into the air and said coldly. This immortal mansion has no owner. Anyone can snatch it. Could it be that your Dalan temple wants to bully my incense sect because we have fewer people? Master Tiangang shook his head and smiled bitterly. Nun Shu Qing sneered. Dalan temple's plan. You set a trap to kill 3 birds with 1 stone. You can kill Sakura and Tenryu sect's vitality. And Inju 10 sect's people. You cans the sect's people and 10 sect's ants and Tenryu sect has. And you can sects, you can sect sects and use. What a perfect plan. This old woman is full of admiration. Shu Qing, what kind of person is this old monk? How can I do such a despicable thing? Shu Jie's matter was just this old monk's negligence. Last night, this old monk also felt guilty and chanted the Sutra of Rebirth 100 times in front of Buddha. Shut up, Master Tiangang. It's useless to say anything. My junior Shu Jie is no longer here. Even if you chanted the Sutra of Rebirth 10,000 times, will she be able to come back to life? Moreover, Yudalan Temple made the Shindao sect retreat the moment you came. Yet you rushed forward. Isn't this clearly showing that you're trying to hide 300 taels of silver here? If it wasn't for your Dalan Temple having thoughts of meddling with the immortal mansion, would you have done this? Since you've done this, then the fall of my junior Shu Jie, wouldn't there be a very good explanation? Nun Shu Qing didn't listen to Master Tiangong's words. Amitabha. Shu Qing, you are determined to help the Shindao sect? Master Tiangang asked. Yes. Nun Shu Qing answered without hesitation. So it's like this. Master Tiangang looked at the steps of the immortal mansion not far away and nodded. Although these steps can only allow one person to go up, it can't be said that only one person can go up. We can all go in. But who can go in first? Won't that person have a better chance? Master Tiangang? Nun Shu Qing mocked. If the Dalan Temple is merciful, seeing that my junior Shu Jie has already fallen, would they let my incense cult be the first to go up? If my Dalan Temple martial nephew Yuanwu hadn't fallen, this old monk would agree. But martial nephew Yuanwu also fell with Shu Jie last night. Tell me, can this old monk let you go first? Master Tiangang said faintly. Although this old monk is merciful, but after all, I'm still a monk of the Dalan Temple. I have to think of the Dalan Temple. Yes, you're right. This disciple also has to think of my incense cult. Nun Shu Qing replied. How about this? We'll all retreat 10 feet away for the time being and discuss in detail to see if there's any way to solve this problem. Master Tiangang said again. If we fight until we're not even in the immortal mansion, won't we become a joke? Nun Shu Qing looked at the 2 magic weapons that formed a triangular formation in midair and nodded. This disciple has the same intention. Master Tiangang heard this and waved his sleeves, retreating backward. Nun Shu Qing saw this and also retreated. Bai Yanqiu had already understood. He waved his hand and everyone between the clouds and the water retreated 10 feet, leaving the 10 feet at the end of the steps empty. But, in the air above the steps, those 7 magic weapons. None of them took them back. Master Tiangang and Nun Shuqing didn't hide their conversation. Nun Shuqing even sent her voice out. The people of the Jianghu who had already gathered far away from the steppes all heard it clearly. They naturally understood that whoever could enter the immortal mansion first would have a better chance of obtaining it. Last night, because of the appearance of the immortal mansion, there was already a huge massacre. Now, the steps to the immortal mansion were close at hand. Who could still calm down? If it weren't for the experts of the immortal Tao and the amazing magic weapons floating in the air, wouldn't everyone have rushed up? For a moment, the tens of thousands of people on the south side of Yao Mountain were like a brewing flood. On the surface, they were silent, but the undercurrent was already surging in the dark. Not everyone coveted the steps. At least, Zhang Xiaohua didn't think so at this moment. Zhang Xiaohua was standing in the middle of the crowd. His face was filled with surprise and joy. He was staring at the 2 words on the signboard above the palace gate. From the moment the steps appeared and the plaque above the palace gate could be seen clearly, he had been staring at it. The 2 big words were ancient characters. No one could understand them. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know either. But he had seen it before. It was when he refined the Hao Tian mirror that he knew the 2 words that appeared on the Hao Tian mirror. The words on the palace gate were, Hao Tian. Could it be that the Hao Tian mirror is related to this palace? Zhang Xiaohua instantly thought and said, if not, why are the 2 words Hao Tian? Shindao sect and incense cult both have a part of the Hao Tian mirror? The more he thought about it, the more Zhang Xiaohua felt that there must be a reason behind it. The idea of seizing the immortal mansion that he had thrown away earlier came back to his mind. However, Zhang Xiaohua didn't know how to use it. The Hao Tian mirror didn't record it and Wan Wuxin didn't explain it either. Wan Wuxin wanted to leave the immortal mansion to the Shindao sect and only asked Zhang Xiaohua to bring the news of the immortal mansion to the Shindao sect. He didn't even mention the location of the immortal mansion. Zhang Xiaohua rubbed his chin and thought for a while. Then he looked at Master Tiangang and the others who were gathered in the camp between the clouds and the water. He thought to himself, I didn't expect the old monk sweeping the floor of the sutra depository to be Master Tiangang. The incense cult's Nun Shuqing's cultivation is even higher than Nun Jingyi's. She should be Nun Jingyi's teacher. Since Nun Shuqing claimed to be Master Tiangong's disciple, her seniority is 1 generation lower. There's no need to talk about Master Tiangong's age and cultivation. Even if I can defeat Nun Jingyi, I'm still far from being their opponent. However, if I wait for them to kill each other, with Master Tiangang around, this situation won't happen. The biggest possibility is that they will find a way to compromise and restrain each other so that they can enter the immortal mansion together. If that's the case, I can only blend in with the ordinary men of the pugilistic world and enter the immortal mansion. But, in front of the ordinary men of the pugilistic world, aren't there incense cult, Dalan temple and between the clouds and the water? Even the righteous Tao alliance is in front of them. When I enter the immortal mansion, I won't even be able to pick up trash. As Zhang Xiaohua thought about it, she subconsciously looked at the people from the righteous Tao alliance who were using their lightness techniques. She saw Alliance Master Zhang San standing far away. He looked at the stairs in the distance and then at Master Tiangang who was gathered for a discussion. Finally, he turned back to look at the various weapons on the stairs. His face was terrifyingly gloomy. Forget it. Even the righteous Tao alliance is in front of I. How can that be? Zhang Xiaohua clenched her teeth and secretly reached into her clothes. She secretly took out the Hao Tian mirror from her money pouch. Unexpectedly, just as she took out the Hao Tian mirror, before Zhang Xiaohua could hold it firmly, the Hao Tian mirror seemed to be pulled by a huge force and immediately flew out of Zhang Xiaohua's hands. Oh no! Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. This place was not far from Master Tiangang and the others. Zhang Xiaohua hid her divine sense and cultivation level so that she could take advantage of the situation. Once the Hao Tian mirror appeared, how could it not attract their attention? However, when Zhang Xiaohua reached out to grab the Hao Tian mirror, she saw the Hao Tian mirror somersaulting in midair. The front of the mirror rushed towards the palace gate on Yao Mountain. In an instant, the clear sky mirror emitted a faint white misty brilliance and shone directly at the palace gate. With a buzzing sound, layers of rippling 7-colored brilliance appeared on the palace gate and passed through the brilliance emitted by the clear sky mirror. The brilliance was extremely swift. Before Zhang Xiaohua could react, it had already enveloped him. An incomparably powerful suction force pulled him straight towards the palace gates. Ren Xiaoyao? The strange movement of the Hao Tian mirror attracted Master Tiangong's attention from the beginning. However, that brilliance was so fast that it did not give anyone a chance to react. When Zhang Xiaohua was enveloped by the seven-colored brilliance, her transfiguration technique immediately lost its effect. She revealed her original appearance of a tall, thin figure with small eyes and a flat nose. Please vote for me. Please vote for me. Please collect me. Please tip me. Chapter 1170. Originally, Master Tiangang wanted to mediate between the Dalan Temple fragrant religion and between the clouds and the water to reach a tacit understanding so that everyone would be happy. However, when he saw the seven-colored brilliance in the immortal mansion and saw the protector of the incense cult flying towards the palace gate, how could he not know the reason behind it? Master Tiangang shouted, "Fragrant religion, you've gone too far." He flew into the air and waved his hand. The wheel of divination spun rapidly and was about to catch up with Zhang Xiaohua, who was flying towards the palace gate. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua's body was as light as a feather. Coupled with the unparalleled power of the seven-colored light, when the wheel of evolution started to rotate, Zhang Xiaohua's body had already entered the seven-colored ripples above the palace gate. Not even a bit of splendor splashed out, he had already disappeared. Master Tiangang was not the only one who was surprised. Bai Yanqiu, Liang Zongxiu and the others from Shuiyun Club were also shocked when they saw Zhang Xiaohua's figure. However, the clear sky mirror was in Bai Yanqiu's palace in Shuiyun Club, and the two words "clear sky" did not appear. She also did not associate the two words on the palace door with the clear sky mirror that she had lost. Bai Yanqiu looked at the fragrance cult with a pensive look. The monks of the Dalan Temple, Master Chong Xing, Great Master Chong Gong, Master Chong Xing, and the protector's disciples Kongchan and Kongju, did not go up. They landed on the ground not far from the Righteous Alliance. When they saw the first person they knew enter the immortal abode, they were all stunned. Master Chong Xing sighed. Amit Ba Abbess Jingyi? She really racked her brains. She actually still had this trick up her sleeve. Isn't that so? We've already agreed that only the masters of the immortal Tao can fight for it. We're all just spectators. How could she let a protector get it first? Great Master Chong Gong was extremely indignant. Master Chong Xing murmured, "But even if Abbess Jingyi wanted to do something, why didn't she go in herself?" Senior brother, don't be silly. Our Dalan Temple and fragrant religion had an agreement. If she went in herself, wouldn't she be openly violating the agreement? Provoking a war between the Dalan Temple and fragrant religion? This is disadvantageous to both sections. It's definitely not what Abbess Jingyi wanted. Priestess Jingyi is the leader of fragrant religion. Naturally, she would prioritize the inheritance of our sect. It's normal for Abbess Xuqing to fight for immortal mansion. Ren Xiaoyao's move. This old monk doesn't understand. Master Chong Xing shook his head. Yes, of course, Master Chong Xing didn't understand. Even Abbess Jingyi herself didn't understand. She saw Ren Xiaoyao's figure rising in the brilliance and almost groaned. So, Yao. Ah? Ren Xiaoyao? Qin Qin had already cried out in surprise and almost jumped up. Ren Xiaoyao. How could it be him? Peacock's heart skipped a beat and her heart was about to burst out. She lost her composure and covered her mouth with her hand. Abbess Jingyi cried out and couldn't help rubbing her eyes with her hand. She saw Zhang Xiaohua's figure entering the palace gate and said hatefully, "Tenria's sect. It's really pervasive." Immediately, Abbess Jingyi thought of Master Tiangong's exclamation and immediately woke up as if from a dream. She said loudly, "Oh no, Master Tiang. He's going to misunderstand." Without waiting for her voice to fall, the rapidly rotating wheel of Yen Fan above the steps whizzed towards the white lotus laid out by Master Xuqing using the white cloud flag. Abbess Xuqing naturally didn't know Zhang Xiaohua. When she saw Zhang Xiaohua rush into the palace gate, she was stunned. But when she heard Master Tiangang call out that person's name and say fragrant religion has gone too far, she thought it must be Abbess Jingyi's trick. Since that person was a disciple of fragrant religion, of course she had to protect her. Seeing the wheel of Yen Fan flying over, Abbess Xuqing sneered. Since someone has rushed in first, there's no need for discussion. Let's rely on our own abilities. As she spoke, she waved the plain cloud white flag and countless white lotuses rushed out to block in front of the wheel of Yen Fan. However, the wheel of Yen Fan was only blocked by the white lotuses for a moment. Then countless sword-like rainbow-colored lights pierced out from the white lotuses and smashed the countless white lotuses into pieces, turning them into ordinary chi of heaven and earth. The wheel of Yen Fan, which had broken through the white lotuses, whistled and rushed toward the plain cloud white flag in Abbess Shuqing's hand. Dong dong dong. A burst of deafening, thunder-like drum beats resounded. Circle after circle of formless ripples resounded from the air not far away, and rapidly rushed towards the mortal evolution wheel. It was none other than Taoist Master Hao Yun of the Water Cloud sect. He leaped into the air and with a wave of his hand he picked up the heaven-shaking drum and attacked Grandmaster Tiangang. You still say, "What? This old monk thought you were going against the Dalan Temple because of Junior Sister. Turns out, you already had a plan." Master Tiangang laughed. Since Master Tiangang, Abbess Shuqing and Master Hao Yun had already made their move, how could Master Yuan Dao and Master Yuan Ming be idle? The Buddha's light on the Maomu pearl expanded and smashed toward the lightning hammer like a meteor. The lightning all did not show any signs of weakness. Master Hao Feng pinched a spell and countless lightning bolts appeared from the surroundings, making chi-chi-la-la sounds as they flew toward the demon-subduing pestle that had been slowly growing in the air. For a moment, above the stairs and in the air, there was a burst of light and sound. The immortal Dao experts were using their supernatural powers to fight. Looking at the ground, the Jianghu people had long been waiting for an opportunity to rush up the stairs of the immortal mansion. Zhang Xiaohua being led into the immortal mansion by the light was the fuse that caused everyone's emotions to explode. Now everyone had the same thought, oh no, someone has already entered first. The immortal mansion is probably going to be taken by this person. If I can't follow closely behind and that person takes control of the immortal mansion, won't I have no chance at all? Now that the immortal Dao experts are fighting, they don't have the time to care about me. Shouldn't I take this opportunity to rush into the immortal mansion? Once this thought appeared, no one could control their footsteps and rushed up. Even if there was no blood-red light last night, once the human nature was revealed, who could compete with it? Disciples, listen to my order. Surround the immortal mansion and use the talismans as barriers to block the people rushing up. Bai Yanqiu saw the situation and immediately ordered. Then he looked at the elders of the Dalan Temple, Nun Jingyi of the Incense Cult, and Alliance Master Zhang San of the Alliance of the Righteous Sects and shouted, "Sect leaders, quickly come and help. If our sect's defense is broken, the ownership of the immortal mansion will be unknown." The sect leaders of the three sects naturally knew the severity of the situation. To be honest, they also wanted to rush up the stairs. However, wherever their divine senses went, there were restrictions on the stairs and they could not fly. They estimated that they could only walk up the stairs step by step. Among the four sects who went first, well, no one dared to go first. If one of the sects went first, the other three sects might join forces. It was also possible that they would exterminate their descendants on the spot. Containment, this was containment. Looking at the stairs that were close at hand, no one dared to go first. Hearing Bai Yanqiu's call, the sect leaders of the three sects did not dare to be negligent. They turned around and ordered, quickly send orders to the disciples. All of you, go to the south side of Yao Mountain and assist the disciples between the clouds and the water. You must block the other sect's disciples. Yes. The disciples obeyed and left. Not long after, many disciples of the three sects came as reinforcements. With weapons in their hands, they rushed towards the disciples of the other sects like a tide. Immediately, flesh and blood splattered everywhere and blood flowed like a river. At this time, Yao Mountain was completely covered by the palace of seven-colored brilliance. However, there were no passageways to the east, west, and north. There was only a dazzling brilliance. Only the south side of between the clouds and the water station had a flight of stairs that led to the Immortal's mansion. Everyone who wanted to enter the Immortal's mansion had to first kill their way through the defenses of the three sects of the Immortal's Path and the Alliance of the Righteous Path. Only then would they have a chance to set foot on the stairs. Near between the clouds and the water, there was a defensive light barrier last night. However, after being attacked by the crowd last night, it had long since dimmed. In addition, these defensive jade talismans were rarely seen between the clouds and the water. Bai Yanqiu did not have so many talismans between the clouds and the water. Now the only thing he could do was to send his disciples to the front. Although the disciples of the various sects were highly skilled in martial arts, when faced with the flood of disciples from the various sects, they clearly did not have the advantage in terms of martial arts. A disciple from the Righteous Alliance held a long sword in his hand and stabbed a disciple in front of him to death. A disciple from another sect stabbed a long spear in his hand. The disciple from the Righteous Alliance dodged and grabbed the long spear in his hand. His body leaped forward and the sword flashed, piercing the disciple's throat. However, at this moment, a disciple from the Righteous Alliance who was better at lightness skill had already moved past him and rushed to the back of the disciple from the Righteous Alliance. The disciple from the Righteous Alliance quickly turned around, wanting to chase after the disciple from the Righteous Alliance before he could get too far away. However, just as he knocked away the disciple's weapon and pierced his back, two long swords came from the left and right to his ribs. The disciple from the Righteous Alliance was also very skilled. He quickly leaped and dodged the two long swords. Suddenly, a long rod shot out from between the swords and struck the disciple's dantian. The person who used the long rod was obviously very skilled in martial arts. This rod strike caused the disciple from the Righteous Alliance to spit out blood. Before the blood could fall to the ground, two more long swords came stabbing at the disciple from the Righteous Alliance. The disciple from the Righteous Alliance had just dodged one long sword when the other pierced his chest. Blood flowed out from the long sword and the disciple from the Righteous Alliance fell limply to the ground, no longer breathing. Beside him, the two outer sect disciples of the incense cult, seeing that there was an opening, immediately raised their swords to block, and once again fought with the two long swords. The blood of the Righteous Alliance's disciples slowly flowed out, seeping into the ground. The blood of the pugilistic world's disciples that he killed also flowed out, but in a short while, it disappeared without a trace. At this time, although there was no bloody brilliance, but in the bloodthirsty crowd who would care about such details. The battle on the ground, although it was not as exciting as the battle in the air, but compared to the cruelty, it was 100 times better. In just the time it took to eat a meal, more than 2,000 people had died on the spot. Please cast a monthly vote, please cast a recommendation vote, please collect, please tip, thank you. Chapter 1171. Although the disciples of the three sects of the Immortal Path and the Righteous Alliance were stronger than the disciples of the Jianghu sects, there were still casualties. Moreover, the casualties were beyond their expectations, especially the Righteous Alliance, which could not be compared to the three sects of the Immortal Path. In the time it took to eat a meal, 2,000 people had died. Among them, 1,200 were disciples of the various sects of the Jianghu, 300 were disciples of the three sects of the Immortal Path, and 500 were disciples of the Righteous Alliance. Alliance Master Zhang San stood not far away, his face still gloomy as he watched, biting his lips tightly. Beside him, Vice Alliance Master Chai also saw that the situation was not good. He bit Alliance Master Zhang San's ear and whispered a few words. Alliance Master Zhang San nodded slightly, looking up at the sky where Master Tiangang and the others were fighting fiercely. He then looked at the incense cult Dalan Temple and between the clouds and the water, who were watching their disciples kill each other. He circulated his energy and shouted, Master Chongqing, the martial arts of our Righteous Alliance's ordinary disciples are weak. We have already lost a lot of them. If we don't act now, I'm afraid our Righteous Alliance's disciples won't be able to hold on. Master Chongqing also released his divine sense. He had already seen the reason. After pondering for a moment, he nodded and said, Alliance Master Zhang San is right. Abbess Jingyi by Zhangmen, what do you think? This old one has been wanting to say this for a long time. Our incense cult's outer sect disciples have also lost a lot. This old one's hands are itching to fight. Why don't we also exercise our muscles? Let the younger generation know how strong we are so that they can learn a lesson and not do things that don't know when to stop. Abbess Jingyi looked at Bai Yanqiu and smiled. This old one has the same idea. Abbess Jingyi, you go first? Bai Yanqiu replied. This old one will go first. Abbess Jingyi stretched out her hand and took out a small peachwood sword. she said self-deprecatingly. This old one does not have any immortal sword techniques, so I can only control the peachwood sword. This old one has made a joke of myself. With that, he let go of his hand and formed a seal with his left hand. His index finger and middle finger came together, and the peachwood sword that was thrown into the air trembled slightly. At first it was a little shaky, but then it quickly pierced towards a disciple of the various sects in the distance. That disciple was holding a machete in his hand, chopping towards a disciple of the incense cult who had fallen to the ground. How could he let go of the flying sword? All he saw was a black shadow flashing by. His throat felt cold and all the strength in his body was sucked out. The machete fell to the ground and he fell on his back. Seeing that their sect leader had made his move, Abbess Shuezhen, Peacock Chen Chen and the others did not hesitate. They took out their weapons and charged into the crowd. The martial arts skills of this group of inner disciples were much higher than the rest. They were like wolves in a flock of sheep, slaughtering the disciples who were charging at the front. But after all, there were too many people and there were still many disciples behind who didn't know what was going on. They rejoiced that they were able to charge to the front, but who would have thought that they had entered the Azura field? For a moment, blood splattered all over the incense cult side. Amitba. Grandmaster Longevity sighed. He looked at the disciples around him and said, "Go and face the tribulation. The origin returning tribulation is here. No disciple can escape." Yes, disciple obeys. Great Master Chong Gong, Grandmaster Chong Xing and many other disciples who were guarding the Dharma all charged into the crowd with weapons in hand. Between the clouds and the water and the Righteous Alliance did the same. They sent out the last of their elites. Like fierce tigers coming down from the mountains, they charged into the crowd and killed without restraint. In the time it took to eat a meal there were countless casualties. Corpses were everywhere. Perhaps, in the past year, the number of people who died in the entire Jianghu was not as many as the number of people who died in these 2 hours. However, the killing did not stop. Those who were still alive and wanted to rush up the stairs kept coming up. The disciples of the 4 sects were gradually becoming impatient. At this time the battle in the air gradually came to an end. It was somewhat similar to the situation last night. Although Grandmaster Tiangang and the others were immortal-like existences in the entire Jianghu, their true cultivation was only at the late stage of the qi refining realm. They were not even in the foundation establishment realm. However, the magic tools they used were the so-called primordial divine tools, which were incomparably powerful. But behind this incomparably powerful magic tool was also a huge amount of true qi. They had held back a little in their fight last night, but today when they saw the stairs and thought of the benefits of the immortal mansion, they spared no effort. They used all the true qi in their meridians, and the magic tools in their hands shone with a myriad of lights. Their auras were extraordinary. The consequences were obvious. After the time it took to eat 2 meals, the true qi in their meridians was completely empty. The primordial qi they absorbed from the heaven and earth was far from enough to satisfy the consumption of their magic tools. Grandmaster Tiangong's face was slightly flushed. His eyes revealed a stern look, and his fingers that were forming a seal were slightly trembling. He glanced at Senior Nun Shuqing, who was holding the plain cloud white flag, and clenched his teeth. He waved his hand and the mortal wheel, which had already dimmed, turned into a flash of lightning and flew in front of him. Grandmaster Tiangang hesitated for a moment, then opened his mouth and spat a mouthful of essence blood on the mortal wheel. The essence blood seeped into the mortal wheel and it immediately shone brightly. Grandmaster Tiangang pointed his finger, and the mortal wheel whizzed towards Taoist Master Hao Yun. Seeing this, Senior Nun Shuqing sneered. She unfolded the plain cloud white flag in her hand, and also spat a mouthful of essence blood on it. The same brilliance flashed and countless snow-white lotus flowers with red threads appeared around her and Taoist Master Hao Yun, blocking Grandmaster Tiangong's mortal wheel. Taoist Master Hao Yun also didn't hesitate. He poured the rest of his Fa Li into the heaven-shaking drum, and that invisible wave attacked the mortal wheel. The mortal wheel seemed to have fallen into an invisible quagmire. It slightly swayed and couldn't move even half an inch. At this moment the mortal wheel suddenly spun faster, and with a crisp paw sound, the cross in the middle of the circle suddenly shot out from the mortal wheel. It was even faster than Senior Nun Jingyi's peachwood sword, and it shot straight towards Taoist Master Hao Yun's chest. Ouch! Taoist Master Hao Yun shouted. He changed the seal in his hand, and the heaven-shaking drum immediately expanded. Thunder rumbled on the drum's surface and it blocked in front of him. Puff 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 puff. A series of light, almost inaudible sounds rang out. That cross broke through the wave of the heaven-shaking drum and attacked the drum's surface. With a huge dong sound like the sound of heavenly thunder, that cross hit the heaven-shaking drum's surface, and it actually pierced through the heaven-shaking drum. The speed of the cross slowed down a bit, but it still pierced towards Taoist Master Hao Yun's chest. Taoist Master Hao Yun obviously didn't expect the mortal wheel to be so powerful. Only when the cross pierced in front of his body did he come to his senses, and immediately flew backwards. At the same time he crushed the jade talismans in his hand, and one after another light barriers rose from his body. Unfortunately, that mortal wheel was so powerful. It pierced through a defensive light barrier, and even after piercing through a dozen of them, the speed of the mortal wheel only decreased slightly. With another paw sound, this was the sound of the mortal wheel finally hitting Taoist Master Hao Yun's body. Taoist Master Hao Yun felt pain. He opened his mouth and with a pu sound he spat out a mouthful of blood into the air and his body fell from the air. Senior brother, Taoist Master Hao Yu was startled. Just as he called out, the Molu pearl that was smashing towards the thunder all made a slight turn and attacked Taoist Master Hao Yu's back. With a ping sound, a weak light red brilliance flashed from Taoist Master Hao Yu's back. Obviously it was Taoist Master Hao Yu's defense. However, even though that defense blocked most of the force of the Molu pearl, there was still an extremely strong force that attacked Taoist Master Hao Yu's back and he also spat out a mouthful of blood. Fortunately, Taoist Master Hao Yu was barely able to stabilize his body. He flew to the side and caught Taoist Master Hao Yun who had already fainted. Ouch! You dare to sneak attack me? It was Master Tiangang's angry roar. Under Master Tiangang's feet, the peach blossom whip of Chuanxiang cult rapidly flew back to Senior Nun Shuqing's hand. Master Tiangang's feet staggered and he couldn't stand steadily. He also fell from the sky. Master Yuan Ming, who controlled the Molu Pearl to hit Taoist Master Hao Yu, didn't have time to use the Molu Pearl again. He immediately flew over and caught Master Tiangang's body. At this time only Master Yuan Dao, who was holding the demon subduing pestle, and Taoist Master Hao Feng, who was holding the lightning hammer, were left in the air. Seeing this, the two of them also had the intention to retreat. Just as they were about to turn back, they heard a mournful cry from the immortal mansion on Mount Yao. It was the same cry as last night and it resounded through the entire world. Then the entire immortal mansion on Mount Yao suddenly turned red, like a burning flame. Heaven and earth Yuan Qi also converged from all directions at the same time, converging around Mount Yao. The red light of the immortal mansion became even brighter. A faint sound of beating drums was heard again, and the red light turned into the color of blood just like last night. Accompanied by the beating of the drums, the eyes of everyone around Mount Yao faintly lit up. Their eyes were filled with an unyielding gaze, and their faces were also filled with pain and despair. In the air, Master Yuan Dao, who already had the intention to retreat, immediately stopped. He took a deep breath and waved his hand. The demon subduing pestle left his hand and smashed towards Taoist Master Hao Feng like a mountain. Taoist Master Hao Feng did the same, and his lightning hammer transformed into a large hammer to meet the demon subduing pestle. With a loud bang, the demon subduing pestle collided with the demon subduing pestle and smashed towards Taoist Master Hao Feng. At this time, Taoist Master Hao Feng's eyes were also filled with despair. He waved his hand and the lightning hammer didn't return to save him. Instead it smashed towards Master Yuan Dao. In a flash, the lightning hammer hit Master Yuan Dao's back, and the demon subduing pestle hit Taoist Master Hao Feng's chest. Both of their bodies flashed with brilliance and their defenses were broken. With two poo-poo sounds, both of them spat out blood at the same time and fell from the air. This wasn't strange. The strangest thing was that Master Yuan Ming, who caught Master Tiangang in his arms, also pointed his finger, and the Mao Pearl in the air smashed towards Hao Yu. Hao Yu didn't dodge and the lightning all rotated to counterattack Yuan Ming. Almost at the same time both of them were hit by each other. Their bodies slanted and their hands loosened. All four of them fell from the air. Strangely, the falling Master Tiangang pointed his finger and the wheel of divination that was floating in the air suddenly became smaller and faster. Before Shu Qingnun could wave the plain cloud-white flag, the wheel of divination hit Shu Qingnun's back from behind. Shu Qingnun also fell from the air. At the same time, the red light in the immortal mansion suddenly shone brightly, and a huge suction force came from the immortal mansion. In an instant, it sucked away all the yuan qi of heaven and earth that had just gathered around Yao Mountain. Chapter 1172. A huge suction force suddenly appeared from within the immortal mansion, sucking away all the energy of heaven and earth around Yao Mountain. In an instant, not even a trace of energy remained around Yao Mountain. Because the energy of heaven and earth was sucked away, the sky was originally clear and boundless. At this time, countless black clouds floated over from afar. Waves of inexplicable hurricanes were born from the 9 heavens, whistling as they blew down. Then countless floating snowflakes also fell. The hurricanes mixed with the snowflakes, wreaking havoc in the midnight darkness. Only far away behind the black clouds, the starry sky flickered brightly, as if countless eyes were staring at the astronomical changes on Yao Mountain. The sudden change of wind and clouds, the flying sand and stones were the portrayal of this moment. Countless Jianghu sect disciples were unable to stand firm, almost falling down, unable to even hold the weapons in their hands. The most miserable, of course, was Master Tiangang and the others who were fighting in the air. These people's actions were really puzzling. Not to mention Master Tiangang and Taoist Master Hao Yun. Taoist Master Hao Yun was hit by Master Tiangong's wheel of expansion, knocking him unconscious and falling into the air. Taoist Master Hao Yu caught Taoist Master Hao Yun. Master Tiangang was attacking Taoist Master Hao Yun successfully, but was ambushed by Abbess Shu Qing with her peach blossom whip. He was also seriously injured, falling down, and was caught by Master Yuan Ming. It was perfectly reasonable for the two of them to be severely injured. It was the result of a normal battle. The other 5 people fell from the air at this time. That was extremely strange. Master Yuan Dao and Taoist Master Hao Feng originally had the intention to retreat, but after hearing the faint sound of the drum and the blood-red light, they boldly attacked again. Moreover, it was a method of mutual destruction. It was really inconceivable. There was also Master Yuan Ming, Taoist Master Hao Yu, Taoist Master Hao Feng, and even Abbess Shu Qing, who was knocked into the air by Master Tiangang. It was against common sense, beyond human instinct. Master Longevity and the others were also the same. Under the light of the blood-red light and the faint sound of the drum, they activated the magic tools in their hands, injuring many people. The hurricane that followed suddenly woke them up. When they narrowed their eyes and looked at the sky, they were all shocked. Although there wasn't a trace of heaven and earth yuan qi, they had long been used to using the levitation technique without heaven and earth yuan qi. At this time, they didn't dare to consider the consumption of qi in their meridians. Master Longevity and the others immediately floated up and reached out to catch the falling Master Tiangang and the others. The Dalan Temple's Master Tiangang, Master Yuan Dao, and Master Yuan Ming were caught by Master Chongqing, and Great Master Chonggung respectively. The aroma cult's Master Shu Qing was caught by Nun Jingyi. As for the 3 reverends between the clouds and the water, they were out of luck. It wasn't that Bai Yanqiu didn't have sharp eyes and quick hands, and it wasn't that he didn't pay attention to the battle in the sky. The foundation of between the clouds and the water was the shallowest among the 3 immortal sections. The battle in the sky was of course the key to whether or not between the clouds and the water could enter the immortal mansion first. Therefore, Bai Yanqiu's mentality was still different from that of Nun Jingyi and Master Longevity. Even when he commanded his disciples to resist the attacks of the various sects in Jianghu, he still put most of his attention in the sky. Seeing the 3 reverends that he relied on as a shield falling from the sky, Bai Yanqiu turned pale with fright. He hurriedly disregarded everything and activated the little qi in his meridians, using the levitation technique that wasn't very profound to meet them head-on. Fortunately, Reverend Hao Yu and Reverend Hao Yun were originally together, and Reverend Hao Feng wasn't too far away. Bai Yanqiu first flew below Reverend Hao Yu, stretched out his hand, and used a move similar to the stellar transposition. Reverend Hao Yu and Reverend Hao Yun, who was in his hands, stopped their rapid descent and changed to a slanted horizontal flight. Liang Zhongshu, you and the others quickly catch them. Bai Yanqiu shouted. Liang Zhongshu and the other disciples who were in the middle of killing didn't dare to be negligent. They all used their lightness skills and chased after Reverend Hao Yu's shadow. While they were busy, a gap appeared in the defense in front of them. Like a tide, there were already a few disciples from the various sects of Jianghu who had rushed out from that gap. After Bai Yanqiu saved Reverend Hao Yu and Reverend Hao Yun, he turned around and went to save Reverend Hao Feng. With just this delay, Reverend Hao Feng was already very close to the ground. Bai Yanqiu didn't dare to imagine that the emaciated Reverend Hao Feng, who had fainted, would immediately fall into several pieces. In a moment of desperation, he kicked Reverend Hao Feng's armpit, and Reverend Hao Feng's body immediately flew horizontally. However, as luck would have it, that direction was precisely the steps of the immortal mansion. Bai Yanqiu. What are you doing? Nun Jingyi was the most relaxed. She held Nun Shuqing in her arms and roared angrily. How could Bai Yanqiu think so much? She was just trying to save Taoist Hao Feng in a hurry. Now that she heard Nun Jingyi's reprimand, she rolled her eyes and said loudly, since the masters of the three immortal sects are evenly matched and can't decide the winner on the path of immortality, then the previous plan can't work. Moreover, Ren Xiaoyao of the Heavenly Dragon sect has already entered the immortal mansion for a long time. If we don't go in now, I'm afraid there will be an unforeseen event. Plus, there are many disciples of each sect behind us. Although the disciples of our four sects can resist for a while, I'm afraid it will be broken through by others in a while. Instead of that, why don't the three immortal sects go in now, followed by Alliance leader Zhang San of the Righteous Alliance? What do you think? Bai Yanqiu also listened to Nun Jingyi's explanation. Although he said Ren Xiaoyao of the Tenryu sect, Grandmaster Chongqing and Nun Jingyi probably knew what he was thinking in his heart. When Nun Jingyi heard this, she knew that Bai Yanqiu had pointed out Ren Xiaoyao and thought that Ren Xiaoyao was her arrangement. If she didn't agree with her suggestion, then she had a guilty conscience. Thus she nodded and said, "That's what I think too. Let the disciples of our sect hold them back for a while. Give us enough time." Moreover, Ren Xiaoyao of the Tenryu sect has already been in the Immortal Mansion for a long time. There hasn't been any change in the Immortal Mansion. I'm afraid he hasn't discovered anything. It's not too late for us to go in now. The elders of the Dalan Temple were also secretly angry. They only listened to Nun Jingyi's explanation. Although they were half convinced, they still nodded and said, "But the order in which we go in." Bai Yanqiu had already thought about it. He turned to look at the disciples who were already beginning to falter and said, "Then let's look at our light body technique cultivation. My cultivation isn't high. I'm afraid I'll fall behind the Grandmaster and the others." "Good." Nun Jingyi smiled and said, "It seems like we'll have to rely on our own cultivation. Peacock, you count. When you count to 3, we'll use our cultivation to rush up the stairs." "Yes, I'll follow your orders." Peacock put away her soft sword and leaped to Nun Jingyi's side. "Those of you who have cultivation of the path of immortality, no matter how deep it is, wait for us to go up the stairs. Maybe we'll have some immortal fate," Grandmaster Chongqing said. Bai Yanqiu was displeased. He thought for a moment and said to Liang Zhongshu, who had just returned with Taoist Hao Yun, "Liang Zhongshu, wait for us to go up the stairs. Help Taoist Hao Feng up from the stairs. If they want to go up after they wake up, then accompany them into the immortal mansion." "All right, your humble disciple will start counting." Peacock received Nun Jingyi's gaze and started counting. As soon as she said 3 words, Grandmaster Chongqing, Nun Jingyi, and Bai Yanqiu all moved quickly. They turned into shadows and rushed up the stairs of the immortal mansion. As soon as the 3 of them left, Alliance Master Zhang San was just about to lift his leg when he saw Dalan Temple Great Master Chong Gong and Grandmaster Chongqing also float up. They completely ignored Alliance Master Zhang San and flew straight to the stairs. Alliance Master Zhang San was stunned. His face turned extremely gloomy. However, all he could do was stomp his feet and follow the 2 great masters up the stairs. Where was the Ren Xiaoyao of the Tenryu sect that Nun Jingyi, Grandmaster Chongqing, and Bai Yanqiu spoke of? A place that Yu Mingxin, Yang Haoya, and Wan Wuxing couldn't figure out even if they racked their brains. At that time, Zhang Xiaohua took out the clear sky mirror and a rainbow-colored brilliance was projected from the palace door. It enveloped Zhang Xiaohua and a powerful suction force pulled Zhang Xiaohua into the palace door. Zhang Xiaohua's body was like a stone that fell into the water. Only a layer of ripples was left behind and he disappeared without a trace. Zhang Xiaohua fell into the immortal mansion. Just as he raised his head, he was shocked by everything in front of him. He couldn't help but be dumbfounded. After a long while he slowly regained his senses. He had seen Misty School's ethereal palace, incense cult's Mo Xian Palace and Huayu Palace. But those so-called palaces compared to the immortal mansion in front of him were really too simple. Too small. Zhang Xiaohua also saw the exterior of the immortal mansion at the foot of Yao Mountain. He didn't think it was that big, but when he stood in the immortal mansion himself he realized how majestic this immortal mansion was. In front of Zhang Xiaohua was an extremely wide passage made of purple jade. The jade in the passage looked like a piece of land without any gaps. The jade passage was about 1,000 feet long. At the end of the passage was a huge palace that was 1,000 feet tall. This palace was like the top of a pagoda. From Zhang Xiaohua's angle he could only see a little of the decoration at the top of the palace. When Zhang Xiaohua looked back he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. Behind him was the palace door that he had just entered. He saw that the palace door was also 1,000 feet tall. Wasn't it also 1,000 feet wide on both sides? He didn't know what material it was made of, but the entire palace door emitted a faint golden light. Zhang Xiaohua looked up at the somewhat blurry archway at the top of the palace door and felt dizzy. Standing in front of this palace door he was not much bigger than an ant. Casting a spell, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to soar into the air, but after flying 3 feet he fell to the ground with a thud. He couldn't fly in the immortal mansion. Oh no, Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself and immediately released his divine sense. Sure enough, his divine sense could only extend 3 feet and couldn't go any further. Why, is there a restriction in the immortal abode? As Zhang Xiaohua thought about this, he took out the chasing dream sword and stepped into the jade passageway. Bang! A huge force was emitted from the passage, and Zhang Xiaohua's figure was sent flying into the air. Chapter 1173. This. Zhang Xiaohua landed on the ground with a gloomy face. It won't let me in. Zhang Xiaohua released his divine sense. Sure enough, there was an extremely mysterious fluctuation of the qi of heaven and earth above the jade stone passage. The fluctuation was different from the fluctuation that Zhang Xiaohua usually saw. It was completely beyond Zhang Xiaohua's knowledge. He tried a few more places but was bounced back by the jade stone passage every time. Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously felt a little anxious. He knew clearly that he was just relying on the Hao Tian mirror and was drawn in by the fairy's mansion of vast heaven. Outside Yao Mountain, once the Dalan Temple, the Cult of Fragrance and the seniors of the Way of Immortals who were fighting between the clouds and the water reached a consensus, any one of them could easily kill him. If he couldn't find the treasure and escape in advance, he was afraid that his end would be extremely tragic. What made Zhang Xiaohua most afraid was that he had exposed his true identity in the light emitted by the Hao Tian mirror in front of Nun Jingyi and the others. In the future, the identity of Ren Xiaoyao would bring him more trouble. Touching his chin with his hand, Zhang Xiaohua smiled bitterly. By the way, this jade stone passage can't be used. What about the open space beside the passage? Zhang Xiaohua's heart skipped a beat. He ran to the right without hesitation and then tried the ethereal steps. Lightness skill of martial arts could be used here. Sure enough, the purple jade stone passageway disappeared after 100 zhang. However, the jade stone passageway wasn't empty space above. Instead there was a flowing river. The river was dark green and abnormally clear. However, although it was clear, the bottom couldn't be seen. There weren't any fish in the water, nor was there anything else. Zhang Xiaohua tried to release his divine sense. A burning and indescribable feeling came from his divine sense, which made him quickly withdraw his divine sense. As soon as his divine sense left the water, the strange feeling disappeared immediately. It seemed that there was also a prohibition on the water. The water was also very wide, about 100 feet. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't fly, so naturally he couldn't cross it. Fortunately, when he looked to the right, there seemed to be another passageway. Zhang Xiaohua immediately used ethereal steps to run another 100 feet or so. Indeed, across the water, there was a blue jade passageway that was narrower than the purple jade passageway he had seen previously. This time, Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to step on the passage rashly. He only put the tip of his foot on it. As Zhang Xiaohua expected, a force pushed his foot to the side and did not let him step on it. However, Zhang Xiaohua felt that this force was a little weaker than before. Why is that? Zhang Xiaohua was a little puzzled. Thinking about it, he did the same thing as when he was in the purple jade passage. He stepped on it and was immediately sent tumbling in the air by the force. It's really like that. Zhang Xiaohua thought and didn't stay any longer as he ran to the right. Beside the blue jade stone passage, there was also a quiet flow of water. It wasn't any different from what he saw just now. Zhang Xiaohua didn't look anymore and directly came to another green jade stone passage. Just like the test just now, Zhang Xiaohua once again discovered that the force of this green jade stone passage was weaker than the blue jade stone passage. Don't tell me, there are other colors at the back? Also, with the difference in color, the force will become weaker? Zhang Xiaohua pinched his chin and concluded. Then he looked at the majestic palace door that was very far away. Zhang Xiaohua didn't dare to delay and kept running down. Next there were green, yellow, orange and red jade stone passages. Unfortunately, even when he reached the red jade stone passage, Zhang Xiaohua still couldn't put his foot on the passage. Although the force of this red jade stone passage was very weak, but there was a needle hidden in silk. Zhang Xiaohua couldn't stand steadily on that passage. Strange, don't tell me this jade stone passage is taken by different people? Is there a difference in cultivation level? Zhang Xiaohua suddenly thought, but in front seems to be 100 feet tall blood-red barrier. I can't pass through it either. Therefore Zhang Xiaohua channeled his true energy to his foot and stepped on the red passage. As expected this time, the force of the passage was much weaker. Zhang Xiaohua stepped on the passage with one foot. As expected. With that thought, Zhang Xiaohua silently channeled the true energy in his meridians and put his other foot on the passage. That foot was steady, but Zhang Xiaohua felt that the force of the second foot was stronger. Just like that, Zhang Xiaohua staggered forward for about 10 steps. The force of the passage became stronger and stronger. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't take it anymore. He was pushed back to his original spot by a force that he couldn't resist. Zhang Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded. Logically speaking, his hands had the strength of tens of thousands of kilograms, so his feet should have the same amount of strength. But on the 7-colored jade passageway he was defeated, and the thing that was defeated was the strength that he was so proud of. If I can't pass through this passage, Nun Jingyi and the rest may not be able to pass through. Zhang Xiaohua began to compare himself. Then he looked at the blood-red light screen in the distance and rushed over again. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua had already walked from the center of the palace gate to the right. Was it not more than 2,000 feet? His position had deviated from the front of the palace. But when Zhang Xiaohua walked another 5,000 feet and came to the side of the blood-red light screen, he saw that the palace in the distance was still facing him. Luckily, there was a black and white jade stone passage near the blood-red light screen. This passage was only about 10 feet long and was much narrower than the previous one. The black and white jade squares were pieced together to form a passage. If it doesn't work, I really have to think of another way. Zhang Xiaohua thought and stepped on the passage. Out of Zhang Xiaohua's expectations, this black and white jade stone passage didn't have much force. After walking so far I can finally enter the palace. Zhang Xiaohua was delighted and was about to execute the ethereal steps. But just as he increased his speed, he immediately felt the fluctuation of energy under his feet. It seemed that the strange force was about to appear again. Do I have to walk step by step? Zhang Xiaohua could only stop the ethereal steps and walked forward slowly. Indeed, as long as he walked slowly, the force would only increase slightly. I didn't do anything wrong, right? When Zhang Xiaohua had walked halfway, he already felt that from the black and white jade stone under his feet, there was an obvious force that was obstructing his footwork. There's really no other choice. I only wanted to go in and take a look to see if I could pick up 1 or 2 treasures. Why is it like this? Since you don't allow people to pass through the passage, why did you send this immortal mansion out from the void? Zhang Xiaohua grumbled inwardly. Suddenly he thought of the terrifying aura that had spread out from the immortal abode. He broke out in a cold sweat. I came all the way here to look for treasures, not to throw my life away. This passageway is full of mysteries. If I go in, won't I be courting death? Zhang Xiaohua stopped and raised his head to look at the palace in the distance. It was really mysterious. When Zhang Xiaohua walked to the blood-red light screen, he felt that he was facing the front of the palace. Now that he had walked halfway through the passage, he realized that he had deviated from the center of the palace by a lot. Why don't I just take a look at the palace and return immediately? Zhang Xiaohua comforted himself. Since I've come so far, the aura has not appeared. Moreover, I was brought in by the Hao Tian mirror. I didn't really want to come in. Zhang Xiaohua was obsessed with money and found a lot of excuses for himself. In a while, the people from the Aroma cult, the Dalan temple, and between the clouds and the water will all come. I'm afraid that the aura won't be able to handle it. Maybe it won't be dangerous if I sneak in? It was not Zhang Xiaohua's fault. At the foot of Yao Mountain, countless people risked their lives to come to the immortal mansion to try their luck. They had already forgotten about the horror of the blood-red light screen. Now that Zhang Xiaohua had entered the immortal mansion, how could he return empty-handed? After thinking for a moment, Zhang Xiaohua continued to move forward. The second half of the passage was not as easy as the first half. The closer he got to the palace, Zhang Xiaohua felt that the force under his feet was increasing. He could only move forward by using his heart sutra to continuously send vital energy to his feet. Otherwise he might be bounced into the flowing water on the side. The flowing water was also strange. When he stepped into the passage, he only saw that the water was about 10 feet long. But after walking for a long time, the flowing water was still at the side of the passage. Looked like it was still about 10 feet long. Zhang Xiaohua could not see through the flowing water. However, he strongly believed that if he fell into the flowing water, he would not have a good ending. Therefore he took out a small primordial stone and absorbed the vital energy of heaven and earth from it as he continued to move forward. Before long he was only about 10 feet away from the palace. Zhang Xiaohua realized that he was already far away from the center of the palace. He was almost at the leftmost side of the palace. Moreover, there was no obvious door to the palace. There was only a huge purple light screen in the center, and then there were blue, cyan, green, yellow, orange, and red light screens. These light screens were of different sizes. As the colors changed, they became smaller and smaller. To the right of Zhang Xiaohua, next to the red light screen, there was a pale white light screen that was a head taller than Zhang Xiaohua. Maybe that white light screen is the black and white passage, the door to the palace? Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. At this moment, on the black and white passage, there was another strange change. The force that was going up suddenly reversed and suddenly went down. A huge force pressed down on Zhang Xiaohua from above. Zhang Xiaohua was thinking about how to get in and out of the palace. This change was completely unexpected. He staggered and almost fell into the flowing water. Are you kidding me? Zhang Xiaohua shouted angrily. He quickly stabilized his body and used a little strength to stabilize himself. When Zhang Xiaohua stood properly, the force did not decrease. It was as if there was 1,000 pounds of mountain pressing down on him. Please vote for me. Please vote for me. Please add me. Chapter 1174. The pressure on Zhang Xiaohua's body was extremely heavy, probably more than 1,000 jin. When Zhang Xiaohua slowly walked to the end of the passage, the pressure had increased to more than 10,000 jin. Luckily, this weight was still considered light for Zhang Xiaohua. When he stepped out of the black and white passage, the pressure suddenly disappeared without a trace. In front of Zhang Xiaohua was the pale white light curtain. His left hand clenched tightly on chasing Dream. Zhang Xiaohua did not move to the side. He knew that since he could not walk through the red passage, then he could forget about the red light curtain that was opposite the red passage. When Zhang Xiaohua easily passed through the white light curtain, an extremely strange feeling rose from the bottom of his heart. It was as if there was a divine sense that he could not detect scanning his entire body. A feeling of nowhere to escape also arose spontaneously. But before he could think carefully, he was shocked by what he saw in front of him. This was an incomparably huge space. At the top there were the sun, moon, and stars. Thousands of stars were shining brightly, and these stars were moving and shining. It was no different from the usual starry sky. The orbit of the sun, moon and stars faintly matched with Zhang Xiao's sky Dao starry sky. Looking at the bottom, there was a passage paved with 7 colored clouds. That passage was like the clouds. Below the passage was mountains, rivers, grasslands, deserts, etc. Zhang Xiaohua seemed to be standing on top of the 9 heavens, standing on top of a white cloud, looking down at the earth. After standing in a daze for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua finally regained his senses. It was not that he had not flown in midair before, but his flying technique was limited. The heaven and earth elemental qi was also limited. It was impossible for him to fly to an extremely high altitude. Although he had long enjoyed looking down from above, but that height could not be compared to this. Of course, when Zhang Xiaohua was comprehending the sky Dao and the union of heaven and man, he also had this feeling. But that was because his consciousness was constantly increasing. The deepest impression was of the sky Dao. He was afraid that he would not be able to remember such details. That's Five Claws Peak in Yaoshan? In the middle of the faraway sky there was a huge throne. It was shining with 7-colored brilliance. Just below the throne there was a small hill. At this moment, under the hill, there were countless thin things that looked like ants. They were wriggling non-stop. Beside the hill there was a peak that looked like 5 fingers. Zhang Xiaohua wiped his eyes and cried out in disbelief. Just as he was about to take a step forward to take a look, the white cloud under his feet moved and slowly flew forward. The closer he got to the 7-colored throne, the bigger it got. Yao Shan could finally see it clearly. However, when he reached a certain distance, the white cloud could no longer get any closer. No matter how much he tried to move forward, the white cloud would slip to the side and move in another direction. Near the left side of the throne, there were many clouds of various colors floating leisurely. So that's how it is. After looking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua could see some clues. Although there were many clouds of different colors, they all followed a certain pattern. The purple clouds were at the front, very close to the huge throne. Beyond that there were blue, green, yellow, orange and red clouds. On Zhang Xiaohua's side, there were only some faint white clouds. On the other side of the throne there were some dark clouds. The clouds are also divided into levels. Just like the passageway outside the palace, the higher the level, the closer to the center. In this palace, the closest to the throne in the center. Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. Then he suddenly realized that 4 ancient words had appeared out of thin air above the throne. The words were actually formed from dragons and phoenixes. When Zhang Xiaohua looked at them, he really felt that the 4 ancient words were like dragons flying and phoenixes dancing in the air. It was a pity that Zhang Xiaohua did not recognize any of those 4 characters. They were different from Hao Tian. Seeing that there was nothing to gain in this palace, Zhang Xiaohua subconsciously looked around. In front of him, behind the throne in the center, there was a white light screen. Zhang Xiaohua controlled the cloud and flew towards the light screen. When he arrived at the light screen, he reluctantly turned his head back. To his surprise, he discovered that the huge throne was facing him. Isn't that so? From the moment I entered the palace, the throne was in the center and it was facing me. I followed the cloud and walked very far, but the throne was still facing me. After passing through the light screen, Zhang Xiaohua was still thinking about the magical scene just now. The immortal Dao is really magical. How do they do it? Zhang Xiaohua muttered as he raised his head to look ahead. This seemed to be a side hall of the palace, and there were many doors that were similar to the light screens. In front of these doors there were passageways of different colors. Zhang Xiaohua looked down and saw that there was a black and white passageway under his feet that led to a small hall that was flashing with a white light screen. Zhang Xiaohua followed the black and white passageway and entered the small hall. This small hall was very different from the main hall. It was very ordinary with only a few ordinary decorations. It looked empty and the floor was also made of black and white jade. Zhang Xiaohua walked on it and did not find anything strange. In front of this small hall, there was a long table with nothing on it. In the middle of the small hall, there were a few green praying mats placed randomly. In addition, in the 4 corners of the small hall, there was an identical incense burner. At this time the incense burners were empty, and there was not even a speck of incense ash. Zhang Xiaohua walked closer and released his divine sense to scan through everything. Other than a few praying mats that were similar to the ones in his money pouch, The rest didn't have any fluctuations of heaven and earth yuan qi. Most likely they were just ordinary items. After putting the praying mats into his belt, Zhang Xiaohua came out from another exit of the small hall. The exit of this small hall was facing a round arched light screen just like a moon door. And in front of this moon door, there was only a black and white passageway. Maybe only people in the black and white passageway can walk through? Zhang Xiaohua thought, but he immediately came to a realization. Perhaps anyone who could walk in any other color would be able to walk through the black and white tunnel. The passageways were divided into red, orange, yellow, green, blue, and purple. The further one went, the higher the level, and the lower the color passageway or the palace door formed by the light screen, the higher the level. And people who walked through the lower colored passageway could not walk through the higher colored passageway or palace door. After passing through the white moon door, there was a huge open space in front of him. The open space was divided into many small individual pieces. In the small pieces, there seemed to be soil of different colors and there were extremely different restrictions. In the middle of the open space there was even a round pond. Is this a vegetable garden? Zhang Xiaohua walked all the way looking left and right. To be honest, the layout of this open space was extremely similar to the vegetable garden of a certain family in the Guozhuang house. It was no wonder that Zhang Xiaohua thought so. When he walked to the pond in the middle, his divine sense saw that the water in the pond was rich in qi of heaven and earth. It was not inferior to the mountain spring in the Guozhuang house. Zhang Xiaohua then understood. Could it be that this place is used to grow herbs? Poor Zhang Xiaohua. Ever since Huanxi Manor he had been tending to medicinal plants. Even after he came to the aroma cult he was still planting medicinal plants. But he had never seen how the Tao of Immortals planted medicinal plants. The soil was of different colors and the primal energies of heaven and earth were different. Furthermore, they were protected by seals. Naturally, he didn't know the ins and outs of the matter. Unfortunately, Zhang Xiaohua could not find a single medicinal herb even after looking through the entire plot of land. Furthermore, each small piece of soil had an extremely powerful restrictive spell on it. Even if Zhang Xiaohua wanted to take the soil away, there was no way for him to do so. But Zhang Xiaohua sighed. Without delay, he looked at the light screen on the other side of the open space and went out of the light screen. Out of the light screen there was a place like a corridor. This light screen was in an inconspicuous corner of the corridor. Next to the corridor, there was a passage that could only allow one person to pass through, and halfway down this corridor, there was another corridor that was connected to this one. Zhang Xiaohua walked along the narrow black and white passage. When he reached the intersection of the two corridors, the black and white passage came to an abrupt end. It turned out that the other corridor did not have any color. It was just a gray passage that cut off the corridor, and at the other end of the corridor, various colored passages reappeared. Where does it lead to? I don't know if I can walk through it. Zhang Xiaohua walked to the intersection of the two corridors. He did not dare to move forward. He looked left and right. The left seemed to lead to the back of the big palace. Zhang Xiaohua tried to step on the ground. The gray ground did not produce any force and the ground was soft. Just as Zhang Xiaohua stepped on the ground, the meridians in Zhang Xiaohua's body trembled. The true qi in the meridians was also rapidly circulating. Zhang Xiaohua had a feeling that her meridians had a life of their own. This life of meridians seemed to have felt that there was something on the left that attracted it. Is there a mistake? Zhang Xiaohua was frightened. What was behind this palace? It could actually attract the true qi in the meridians? Zhang Xiaohua naturally did not believe that the meridians had a life of their own. She only thought that the true qi was attracted by the thing behind the palace. Should I follow the black and white passage? Or should I take the risk and walk on this gray path? Zhang Xiaohua could not help but ponder. Needless to say, just by looking at the small hall that Zhang Xiaohua could enter just now, Zhang Xiaohua knew that the black and white passage was the lowest color in this immortal mansion. The places that one could go to were the lowest level places. The possibility of there being good things in these places was really too small. Let's go. Even if I don't go now, when Master Longevity and the others come, they will also go. I'd better walk in front of them. Zhang Xiaohua quickly made up her mind. The gray passage could not be penetrated by divine sense. It looked strange, but walking on it was different from the smooth black and white passage. It was rough and it was no different from walking on a normal mountain path. Chapter 1175. Zhang Xiaohua didn't know how long he had walked. It seemed that in this gray passage he couldn't feel the passage of time. Perhaps it was a cup of tea, perhaps it was a meal, perhaps it was several hours. The scenery around him kept changing. With every step he took he felt that he had arrived at a new place. After walking for a long time, Zhang Xiaohua was too lazy to look around, until an ordinary stone staircase appeared in front of him. At the top of the staircase was a diamond-shaped hut similar to a Buddhist shrine. Moreover, that hut actually had an open door. Seeing this, Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but be stunned. This immortal abode was full of strange things that Zhang Xiaohua couldn't figure out. Suddenly, an ordinary thing appeared, an ordinary hut. How could he not be shocked? Holding Chasing Dream in his left hand, Zhang Xiaohua tried to put his foot on the staircase. The staircase didn't have any reaction and the hut didn't move either. Zhang Xiaohua then put his foot on the second step. Until he reached the door of the hut, there was no reaction. Looking at the empty door, it was pitch black inside and he couldn't see anything. When Zhang Xiaohua released his divine sense, sure enough, that ordinary-looking door also had a restriction that blocked Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense. However, his divine sense didn't find anything special about this restriction. It was similar to other restrictions that he had seen in other places. Zhang Xiaohua first pierced Chasing Dream into the door. Seeing that there was no abnormality, he flashed in. Sure enough, that restriction didn't change. It didn't have any intention of stopping Zhang Xiaohua. However, when Zhang Xiaohua entered the hut, before he could see clearly what was inside, a huge force pressed down on him from all directions. It was more than 100 times stronger than what he had encountered in the black and white passage. Damn, I knew it. Zhang Xiaohua had just thought of this when his body unconsciously became sluggish. He felt as if there were countless mountains pressing down on him. His entire body couldn't move. Luckily this was Zhang Xiaohua. If it was anyone else, wouldn't they have been crushed into meat paste? Crack, crack. That was the sound of Zhang Xiaohua's bones being pressed down by a huge force. At this time, Zhang Xiaohua's meridians seemed to be shackled and she couldn't move a single bit. Raising her head with great difficulty, Zhang Xiaohua's eyes also moved with great difficulty. Only then could she clearly see everything in this small house. This small house was completely empty. There was nothing inside except for a door in front of him that could be vaguely seen. Strange patterns appeared on the diamond-shaped walls and the pointy roof. Zhang Xiaohua had never seen these patterns before, but they were similar to the patterns around the Hao Tian mirror. However, those patterns didn't flash with any brilliance. It didn't seem to be directly related to this huge force. Hence, Zhang Xiaohua frowned slightly. She wanted to release her divine sense to see what was wrong with these patterns. At this moment, Zhang Xiaohua realized that her divine sense was also tightly pressed down in her Naiwen palace. She couldn't release it at all. Weird, Zhang Xiaohua only had this word in his mind. He really didn't know how there could be such a huge force in an empty room. Could it be that the floor of this hut was the same as the jade passage outside? Thinking about it, Zhang Xiaohua lowered her head. The floor was also gray and was similar to the passage outside the hut. She couldn't see anything strange. Zhang Xiaohua tried to lift his leg and take a step forward. However, just as he lifted his leg, an even heavier force pressed down on him, trying to stop him from lifting his leg. Zhang Xiaohua gritted his teeth and lifted his leg up forcefully. On the crystal-clear bones in his leg, there was a faint glow that was almost invisible to the naked eye. There were a few more thin red lines. Zhang Xiaohua finally lifted his leg and took a step forward. Then with a loud ping, he landed heavily on the ground. What is this? Just as Zhang Xiaohua's foot landed on the ground, a purple thing suddenly appeared from the gray ground. Then like a nimble fish, it twisted its body and disappeared. It's probably something good, right? Zhang Xiaohua thought to himself. Then he lifted his leg again and took a step towards the place where the purple object disappeared. This step was as difficult as before, but Zhang Xiaohua felt that it was a little easier than before. Suddenly Zhang Xiaohua had an idea. He put Chasing Dream into his embrace with much difficulty. Then he took a stance and started to use the Big Dipper magical fist. Today Zhang Xiaohua was in a hurry. When he woke up early in the morning, he didn't use it consecutively. Now that he saw such a heavy force pressing down on him, Zhang Xiaohua didn't know that he suddenly had the idea of using the Big Dipper magical fist. Sure enough, under the pressure of 1,000 caddies, Using the Big Dipper magical fist was not an ordinary kind of effort. If not for the fact that Zhang Xiaohua was extremely familiar with the 108 moves, this fist technique might have been full of mistakes. Although it was extremely difficult to execute the Big Dipper God fist, the effect was obvious. The cool stream that came from his left foot had never been so slow in his life, nor had it been so thick. After finishing a set of Big Dipper God fist, Zhang Xiaohua was so tired that his forehead was covered in sweat, but the bones in his body were tight and comfortable. He opened his mouth and almost moaned. Then Zhang Xiaohua started a second set. When the second set started, Zhang Xiaohua felt that his fists and feet seemed to be lighter. The cold flow also became faster. Could it be that it's really useful? Zhang Xiaohua thought and focused on honing his bones. What Zhang Xiaohua didn't know was that as the cold flow flowed, the redness on his bones increased. After finishing the Big Dipper magical fist, Zhang Xiaohua did it again as usual. In the end, a surprise finally came. The Big Dipper magical fist that Zhang Xiaohua had been practicing for a long time leveled up again. A new round of bone-honing cold flow rose from the soles of his feet. Ha ha ha. Zhang Xiaohua laughed from the bottom of his heart. He thought to himself, let's not talk about other things. My Big Dipper magical fist hasn't improved for a long time. To be able to level up in this inexplicable place, it's already not a waste of time. Zhang Xiaohua did it 4 more times and the cold flow also appeared 4 more times. Until the 5th set the cold flow didn't appear. However, by the 5th set, Zhang Xiaohua's Big Dipper magical fist was already strong and vigorous. It wasn't any different from when he used it outside. The strength that was as heavy as 1,000 caddies earlier was also much smaller now. Although Zhang Xiaohua's movements were still a little sluggish, it couldn't be compared to when he couldn't move an inch earlier. It's coming out again. Zhang Xiaohua had just stopped his fists and feet when the purple thing flashed past his ear. Could it be the dense purple gas? Zhang Xiaohua saw it more clearly this time. It was a wisp of purple gas, similar to the purple gas he saw when Byron was born. This is good stuff. Why would it appear here? Zhang Xiaohua thought of the situation where he used Chasing Dream to absorb the dense purple gas and then used Chasing Dream to break the array. The nameless part of his left arm didn't flow out for a long time now. He was helpless against many arrays. If he could absorb this dense purple gas, wouldn't Zhang Xiaohua have more confidence in this immortal abode's arrays? As he thought about it, Zhang Xiaohua reached out and took out Chasing Dream. His eyes searched left and right. That wisp of purple chi was extremely agile, appearing in different parts of the house from time to time. There was no pattern to it at all. Zhang Xiaohua held Chasing Dream for a moment before stopping. He stood quietly in the middle of the house, his eyes darting around as if he was waiting for a rabbit to appear in a tree stump. Sure enough, not long after, that purple gas passed by Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. Zhang Xiaohua used Chasing Dream and used the nameless swordsmanship to stab at the purple gas. Although this dense purple gas was very agile, it was originally a dead thing. How could it know how to dodge? Zhang Xiaohua's sword pierced through. That purple gas was sucked into the small sword like water by Chasing Dream. Then it flowed along Zhang Xiaohua's left arm and disappeared into the nameless place. Hee hee. Zhang Xiaohua laughed and kept Chasing Dream. Looking left and right, he didn't find any other purple gas. Only then did he walk towards the door on the other side. The door on the other side was also open. It was similar to the door Zhang Xiaohua had entered through. There was only a layer of restriction that isolated divine sense. When Zhang Xiaohua walked out of that door, he was welcomed by a wave of blood. A gray passage led to a round palace. That palace was the first one that had appeared when the immortal abode had first appeared. Only at this time that nest-like palace was glowing even more brightly. As for Zhang Xiaohua's true energy, it had been quiet the entire time, but as soon as it emerged from the hut, it began to seethe with excitement. It was almost as if it were challenging Zhang Xiaohua to continue onward through the gray passageway, all the way to the circular palace. That's strange. What could be in that palace? Could it be the immortal who emitted such a strong aura from before? Zhang Xiaohua was very hesitant. After walking for so long, she hadn't met any immortals. If there were any, it would most likely be in this round palace. Should I go or not? Zhang Xiaohua couldn't help but hesitate. Right at this moment, An extremely clear and melodious cry of a bird resounded from within the round palace. After that, there was no movement within the palace, and even the red light had vanished. But the true qi in Zhang Xiaohua's meridians was still rushing, as if sensing Zhang Xiaohua's hesitation. Ai's character has always been good. Why don't I go and take a look? Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself. I'll just go to the door and take a look. If there's any danger, I'll run. It should be fine. With that thought, Zhang Xiaohua walked towards the round palace. The gray path from the small house to the round palace was extremely long. Zhang Xiaohua felt that she had walked for a long time before reaching the front of the palace. Only when she reached the front of the palace did Zhang Xiaohua realize that this round nest-like palace was actually bigger and taller than the palace directly opposite the entrance of the immortal abode. Moreover, this palace didn't have stairs. An incomparably large red light screen towered in front of Zhang Xiaohua. It was abnormally smooth. Obviously, this was the only entrance to the palace. Please vote monthly, please vote recommendation, please bookmark, please tip. Chapter 1176. Not to mention that the round palace was enormous. Even the blood-red light screen in front of Zhang Xiaohua was beyond her imagination. Zhang Xiaohua's divine sense couldn't reach very far. Just by looking at it with her naked eyes, she could tell that the light screen was at least a few hundred feet wide. It was even taller than Yao Mountain. Zhang Xiaohua was like an ant standing in front of the light screen. Zhang Xiaohua looked left and right. The two sides of the light screen were very far away. She went to check. She would have to waste a lot of time. After thinking for a while, Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense to see if there was any restriction on the light screen. Unexpectedly, when Zhang Xiaohua released her divine sense, she couldn't see anything in front of her. That light screen, that palace, didn't even have any signs of existence. Zhang Xiaohua was a little dumbfounded. In the past, she had encountered restrictions that couldn't be seen with the naked eye but could be seen with the divine sense. This was the first time she had seen a restriction that couldn't be seen with the naked eye but couldn't be seen with the naked eye. As she thought about it, Zhang Xiaohua took out a light red fire talisman and hid it on the light screen. A small flame burned on the light screen, but the light screen didn't move at all. The flame slowly disappeared on its own. Zhang Xiaohua took out the clear sky mirror and pointed it at the light screen. She shook it again and again, but the light screen and the clear sky mirror didn't have any reaction. What should I do? Zhang Xiaohua scratched her head. Her divine sense couldn't see the light screen, so naturally she couldn't break the restriction on the light screen. The fire talisman hit the light screen, but it couldn't pass through. Obviously it was blocked, which meant that Zhang Xiaohua couldn't enter at will. This blood-red light screen looked a little dizzy, and Zhang Xiaohua didn't want to try it herself. Zhang Xiaohua's eyes darted around as she pulled out the Crimson Spirit Protection and Dragon Binding Hoop. The Crimson Spirit Protection appeared above her head, protecting her entire body. With a pinch, the Dragon Binding Hoop flew out and slammed into the blood-red light screen. With a ping, it was as if it had collided with something extremely hard. The Dragon Binding Hoop bounced back. Thankfully, the light screen didn't have any resistance. Sigh, looks like I can only use my last move. Zhang Xiaohua sighed and reluctantly pulled out the Chasing Dream sword from his chest. He had just obtained the flowing qi from the nameless part of his left arm. That was something that Zhang Xiaohua needed to save his life. He was indeed reluctant to part with it. Why don't we take a look around? Who knows what's inside the bird's nest? Don't go for wool and come home shorn. Zhang Xiaohua was still hesitating with the small sword in her hand. With a wung sound, Zhang Xiaohua's meridians began to tremble again. The true qi in her meridians began to boil, and her true qi began to circulate uncontrollably. Zhang Xiaohua was extremely bewildered. As she circulated the Worry-Free Heart Sutra to regulate her true qi, she muttered to herself, What's going on? My true qi has never experienced such a situation before. Why does it seem like there's life here? Feels like this is a protest? A demonstration? As if it's showing off? Perhaps it's because I don't have a master to guide me in my cultivation, and this cultivation has gone awry? Or perhaps it's the so-called unstable foundation and the precursor to qi deviation? Thinking about qi deviation, Zhang Xiaohua's expression changed. her heart palpitated and her previous hesitation was swept away. If this round palace could solve the problem of her cultivation, even if she had to take some risks and waste some of her true chi, then it would be worth it. With that thought, Zhang Xiaohua's left hand slashed with Chasing Dream, and the nameless sword technique pierced out. The true chi that had not been seen for a long time flowed out from Zhang Xiaohua's left arm, and directly entered Chasing Dream. When the tip of Chasing Dream's sword touched the light screen, it was like a piece of metal, hard and difficult to pierce. But when the true chi entered the sword tip, the light screen instantly softened like a thin film, and with a single slash it opened up. Zhang Xiaohua did not dare to delay. When the opening was wide enough for a person to pass through, he immediately jumped in, not even daring to retract the crimson spirit shield above his head. But when he entered the palace, he did not suffer any attacks. Instead, everything in front of him left him flabbergasted. After a long while, Zhang Xiaohua, whose mouth was wide open, shook his head as if he had just awoken from a dream, and laughed bitterly as he lifted his feet. How could Zhang Xiaohua not be shocked? The interior of the palace was rather big, so big that it exceeded Zhang Xiaohua's expectations. Even though he had already seen the exterior of the palace, the interior was many times bigger than the exterior. Unlike the previous palace, this time Zhang Xiaohua was standing on the ground, and in front of him was a ground that was a mixture of gravel and bare primordial stones. A bleak wind blew past and Zhang Xiaohua's hair fluttered. Looking at the endless wasteland, an ancient aura hit him in the face, making him feel incomparably weathered. As he breathed, there was a faint smell of blood, and in this smell, there seemed to be a kind of restlessness, a kind of dullness and a kind of speechless suffocation. And these were not what shocked Zhang Xiaohua. What shocked Zhang Xiaohua the most was that he saw a few wild beasts in the wasteland that he had never seen before. One of them was a wild beast that looked like a cow in the Guozhuang house, but only had one horn and one leg. Another was round like a hedgehog, except that there were only 3 spikes and each spike was extremely long and even shone with a cold light. There was another one that flew in the air, thin and long like a thick tree branch without wings, only a long tail. These wild beasts, not only did they look strange, their physiques were also incomparably huge. Although they were far away, but Zhang Xiaohua knew that each of these wild beasts was 10 times his size. What is this place? Zhang Xiaohua laughed bitterly as he lifted his feet and took a step forward. Seems like. Walking into the wasteland, Zhang Xiaohua suddenly realized that his feet were not really stepping on the ground, and it seemed that he could use his divine sense. But the divine sense that he was so proud of in the pugilistic world at this moment, in this incomparably huge wasteland, it seemed really insignificant. Wah! A strange cry, deafening to the ear, almost shook Zhang Xiaohua to the ground. Then a gust of wind blew past and Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Just as he was about to dodge, he saw that in the distance, the bull-like thing seemed to have seen something afraid. One of its feet stamped on the ground, and its cumbersome body jumped forward. This jump was actually very far. But at the same time that the bull-like jumped, a wild beast that was much smaller than the bull-like flew from the horizon. This wild beast also had a slender body with a snake-like head, and 4 small wings on both sides of its body. With a flick of its thin tail, it drew a wonderful arc in the air and flew to the sky above the bull-like. That bull-like seemed to have sensed the arrival of the snake. Seeing that it could not escape, it turned around and jumped again. Its body was in the air and its head was raised to the sky. With a loud sizzling sound, a bolt of lightning that was as thick as the mouth of a bull was formed from the horn, and it zigzagged towards the flying snake in the sky. Zhang Xiaohua watched from afar and was already shocked. He had attracted the heavenly lightning before, but the lightning above the 9th heaven did not seem to be so thick. However, the flying snake didn't seem to care at all. It shook its tail lightly and dodged the attack with its slender body. The lightning swept past the flying snake's body. A faint black light flashed across the flying snake's body. It didn't seem to be injured at all. That bull-like seemed to have panicked. It jumped again and its horn shot out another bolt of lightning, but this time the lightning was much weaker. That flying snake did not even care about it and did not even bother to move its body. When the lightning struck the flying snake, only a sizzling sound was heard and a faint black light appeared, but it was immediately extinguished. Looking at the flying snake again, the flying snake raised its head as if it was about to shoot something. Zhang Xiaohua could not help but open his eyes wide, to see what kind of supernatural power this flying snake had. Unexpectedly, the flying snake raised its head. Its slender mouth did not emit any light. Instead, its entire body shot towards the cow, like a bolt of lightning. The cow was extremely frightened. Its body kept twisting and turning. Its single leg was also jumping left and right on the spot. It was trying its best to escape the attack of the flying snake. But it was obvious that the speed of this bull-like was much slower than that of the flying snake. The flying snake's tail turned nimbly, and its slender head directly pierced into the bull-like chest. At the same time, the bull-like body of the bull-like lightning flashed and many arcs of light flashed out, but this was not enough to stop the flying snake. The flying snake, its entire body made a sizzling sound, and the bull-like immediately fell to the ground, rolling around in pain, its single leg in midair. In just a moment it turned sideways and did not move anymore. Large puddles of blood flowed out from the bull-like mouth and nose. In a moment, that flying snake flew out from the bull-like body and shook off the blood in the air before flying away. Not far away, that hedgehog-like wild beast and that slender wingless wild beast in the sky completely ignored it. Even lightning cannot hit it. That flying snake, even if it was hit, the flying snake did not seem to be afraid. This flying snake does not seem to have any special magic, just relying on its speed and its hard head. It was actually able to drill into the bull-like body. Although the bull-like body had a defense, it was unable to stop the flying snake from eating the bull-like body. What does this mean? Could it be that magic is actually not as strong as a hard body? Zhang Xiaohua saw the scene just now and could not help but fall into deep thought. A bird's cry, and the entire wasteland shook. The hedgehog and the unknown bird were greatly shocked, and looked towards the center of the wasteland and immediately fled. Zhang Xiaohua's inner qi was boiling. Zhang Xiaohua awoke from her deep thoughts. Why am I thinking so much? I have not even finished cultivating this immortal Tao divine ability. Who cares which one is more powerful? It's better to solve my own problem first and see what exactly is causing my inner qi to move so wildly. Zhang Xiaohua thought to herself and walked. I can actually use the flying spell again. Zhang Xiaohua was overjoyed. Please vote monthly, please vote recommendation, please bookmark, please tip. Chapter 1177. Zhang Xiaohua cast a spell and flew in the direction of the bird's cry. Along the way, although Zhang Xiaohua felt that he was flying very high, but compared to the huge rocks in the wasteland, he was simply too small. This made Zhang Xiaohua unconsciously think of the Sumeru world where Wan Wuxin was. There was also a rock. When he walked closer, that rock had already turned into a huge mountain. Could it be that this place also has the same magic? Just as Zhang Xiaohua was thinking, suddenly, an incomparably old aura descended from the sky. An incomparably huge black shadow also blocked Zhang Xiaohua's head. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. His heart thumped wildly. He immediately stopped and looked up. My goodness, isn't this the flying snake that I saw in the distance just now? Zhang Xiaohua was so scared that he hurriedly descended from the sky and stood there obediently. He took out Chasing Dream in his hand and carefully guarded. Just now he was far away and only knew that this flying snake was huge, but he didn't have a direct impression. Now that he was under the flying snake, he really knew how big this flying snake was. That flying snake. Its slender head was as big as the peak of Yao Mountain. On top of its head, there seemed to be a crown that was about the size of Five Claw Peak. It was black and white. Those black eyes without eyelids were as big as Dianqi Lake. His entire body. Zhang Xiaohua was already unable to estimate. It seemed that only the remnant body of the dragon vein that he saw at the bottom of Jiuhua Peak could be compared to it. The flying snake was already so huge. How big was the cow that the flying snake drilled into just now? Zhang Xiaohua didn't need to think to know. Zhang Xiaohua was very nervous. He felt that his heart was about to jump out of his body, but he could only stand there quietly. He was afraid that he would attract the attention of the flying snake and bring an unexpected disaster to himself. It was unknown if the flying snake had noticed Zhang Xiaohua, but its huge body was hovering above Zhang Xiaohua's head. The stench coming out of the flying snake's mouth and nose made it hard for Zhang Xiaohua to breathe. She held her breath and didn't dare to look at the flying snake's eyes. She only stared at the sky and observed with her peripheral vision. Zhang Xiaohua's other hand had already formed a spell. She was just waiting for an unforeseen event, and she would immediately fly back regardless of everything. However, the flying snake continued to hover above Zhang Xiaohua's head. Its mountain-like aura made it hard for Zhang Xiaohua to breathe, but the flying snake refused to leave. In the end, Zhang Xiaohua tried to look directly into the flying snake's eyes, but the flying snake turned a deaf ear to her. Could it be that this flying snake can't see me? Zhang Xiaohua was a little surprised. But after thinking about it, it was normal. Who would pay attention to a small ant for no reason? Hence, Zhang Xiaohua tried to take 2 steps forward. Once there was a sound, the flying snake would be alarmed and the stench from its mouth and nose would come towards Zhang Xiaohua. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. While scolding himself for being rash, he immediately sat cross-legged and faced the sky. Sure enough, once he calmed down, the flying snake lost its target again. It looked left and right. Many times its gaze swept past Zhang Xiaohua's body, but it just ignored her. Fine, Zhang Xiaohua saw this and decided not to move. He just sat there and waited for the flying snake to leave. Since he was bored, Zhang Xiaohua naturally wanted to circulate the carefree heart sutra in his body. But just as he released his spiritual awareness and wanted to draw qi into his body, he was immediately sensed by the flying snake. This scared Zhang Xiaohua so much that he didn't dare to make any more movements. Not knowing how long had passed, the flying snake seemed to have lost its patience. It swung its tail and flew in the air. After a few turns, it flew towards another direction. Zhang Xiaohua let out a long sigh and wiped the sweat on his forehead. He was relieved. Then he thought to himself, could it be that this flying snake can't see me? Is it because I'm really too small? But this question needed to be asked to the flying snake. Zhang Xiaohua didn't have a definite answer. Then Zhang Xiaohua got up and continued to fly forward. During this period he met a few huge bird beasts. But perhaps it was as Zhang Xiaohua guessed. He was really small and those bird beasts were huge. None of the bird beasts paid any attention to Zhang Xiaohua. How long have I been flying? Can't I see anything? Zhang Xiaohua was bewildered. The entire immortal abode is on top of Yao Mountain and this palace is in the immortal abode. I've been flying for so long. I don't know how far I've flown. Just as Zhang Xiaohua was feeling depressed, a huge collapse appeared in front of Zhang Xiaohua's eyes. At this point, Zhang Xiaohua's qi was boiling even more as if it was about to fly out of his body. No matter how Zhang Xiaohua tried to circulate his qi, he couldn't suppress it. Just as Zhang Xiaohua was at a loss, a thunderclap came from the top of the collapse. It was even more shocking than the previous bird cry. Then a pale white brilliance scattered down and covered Zhang Xiaohua's body. A sacred feeling rose from the bottom of Zhang Xiaohua's heart and the qi in his meridians immediately stopped flowing. Zhang Xiaohua was shocked. Looking at the source of the white light, he saw several things spinning above the 9 heavens. The white light seemed to be coming from there. It was too high and he couldn't see clearly. When the qi in Zhang Xiaohua's body stabilized, the white light disappeared. Could it be that there's something strange in the depression in front? Zhang Xiaohua jumped up and wanted to fly into the depression. But after flying for another 10 feet or so, he was blocked by an invisible barrier. And this barrier was even more strange. Not only was it invisible to the divine sense, even the naked eye couldn't see it. Zhang Xiaohua landed on the ground and his divine sense easily passed through the barrier. It was as if it didn't exist. He stretched his hand forward and there didn't seem to be anything blocking him. But, when his hand reached a certain point, it couldn't go any further. Then Zhang Xiaohua held Chasing Dream in his left hand and stabbed forward. That barrier blocked Chasing Dream and he couldn't pierce it at all. When Zhang Xiaohua switched hands with Chasing Dream and tried to use his hand again, that barrier couldn't stop Zhang Xiaohua's hand. His hand still couldn't go any further after reaching a certain point. Strange, what's going on? Zhang Xiaohua scratched his head and lifted his leg to kick over. That leg also went past the barrier but was blocked again after reaching a certain point. But when Zhang Xiaohua tried to move his body forward, his thin and long body couldn't go any further. He lowered his head and looked at himself. Zhang Xiaohua pinched his chin and thought for a long time. Suddenly his eyes lit up and he laughed. Could it be that it's like this? Zhang Xiaohua felt enlightened. He took off the robe that he got from Venerable Fiery Dragon and stretched his hand out again. Ha, it's really like this. Zhang Xiaohua's entire arm actually went through the barrier without any obstruction. But his waist was blocked again. It should be the problem with the belt. Zhang Xiaohua took the belt and then took out the money bag. In the end he successfully went through the barrier without any problems. Then Zhang Xiaohua squatted down and stretched out his hand. He went past the barrier and picked up the money bag. Indeed, the hand that was holding the money bag couldn't be retracted no matter what. It seems that this barrier is able to block all Dharma artifacts. Anything that has the chi of heaven and earth will not be able to enter. Zhang Xiaohua finally understood, but this bracelet of mine, how can it enter? Zhang Xiaohua touched the bracelet on his left arm and thought to himself. There weren't any traces of humans in the wilderness. But Zhang Xiaohua still didn't feel at ease leaving his things outside. After passing through the barrier, Zhang Xiaohua wanted to use his little sword to dig a hole to bury the things. But he didn't know what was wrong with the ground. Zhang Xiaohua had no choice but to find a crack in a huge rock and stuff the things in. He then used a jade talisman to set up a restriction. Only then did he feel at ease and walked into the barrier. Not far from the barrier there was a depression. It was like a huge basin that was prepared to contain something. Zhang Xiaohua flew into the basin and released his spiritual perception. He searched around to see if he could find anything. At this moment, a loud bird's cry sounded from above Zhang Xiaohua's head. That bird's cry was filled with grief and despair. Zhang Xiaohua was greatly alarmed. He raised his head and saw that an incomparably huge phoenix had appeared in the air above his head. That phoenix was more than 100 times bigger than the flying snake that Zhang Xiaohua saw just now. Oh no, why am I here? Zhang Xiaohua panicked. He made a hand gesture and was about to fly away. But at this moment the phoenix cried out 3 times. Its entire body that was covered in rainbow feathers suddenly emitted 1,000 feet long rainbow light. Then the light was annihilated. From within the phoenix's body, there was a dark red blood color. This blood color was so bright, it was like a burning flame. It was fire. Small flames ignited from every inch of the phoenix's body, drowning the phoenix's entire body in dark red flames. A tragic cry sounded again, resounding through the heavens and earth. This phoenix was actually undergoing nirvana. At the same time in the huge basin, there was also a dark red flame that shot up into the sky. From below it rushed towards the wailing phoenix. Zhang Xiaohua was above the basin. He had just used the power of flight and had not flown more than 10 feet. A heart-wrenching pain came from his feet. Before Zhang Xiaohua could cry out, he immediately fainted and fell asleep. Indeed, it was midnight. Zhang Xiaohua had fallen asleep. Just as Zhang Xiaohua was screaming, a strange wave came from his body. Then countless starlight shone through the immortal abode, through the obstacles and onto his body. However, this wave and the starlight could not stop the flames that shot up into the sky. In an instant all of Zhang Xiaohua's clothes, as well as the hair and flesh on his body, turned into nothingness. Please vote monthly, please vote recommendation, please bookmark, please tip. That you're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.